oil don't rise again. And he's willing, and they are willing to ramp up our bills for that. They are willing to just to cost thousands of jobs in Aberdeen and places like that, just so that they don't annoy the little Swedish eco-goblin.
Which is a brilliant way to describe her. And now she's a grown woman, by the way, so we can talk about however we wish. Oh. But one thing I would say is I've heard some ridiculous arguments why we can't take North Sea oil, but we should absolutely do so.
OK, sorry to cut you there, but we've got to do the final papers roundup. So, The Times, fatal meningitis outbreak, declared national incident. The Daily Mail, meningitis outbreak worst we've ever seen. The Sun, I was blinded by the killer bug. It's another meningitis story. The Daily Telegraph, Trump, BBC is against me winning the war. The Independent, Trump's tantrum, we don't need NATO help against Iran. The iPaper, your war on Iran is based on a lie, says Trump's security chief. The Mirror, Britain hit by Trumpflation. The Express, people are dying in hospital corridors without pain relief. The Metro, Reeves bets on quantum leap. And The Guardian, Iran nuclear deal had been within reach before conflict. Right, OK, thank you very much. Thank you to my wonderful panel. Thank you to you at home or wherever you are watching as well. Always tremendous to have you on board. And just a little reminder that on Thursday night I will be taking my show, my 9 to 11 p.m. show, that is, to Leeds. We are going to be...
Still live in Leeds?
Nice, fantastic. They still talk about it. You can still hear people scream down back alleys. Anyway, so we're going to Leeds. It's interesting because that's Rachel Reeves' neck of the woods in Leeds as well. So it'll be fascinating to see how people feel about her there, won't it? So if you're in Leeds, come along and say hi. It's going to be great. But yeah, I'm going to throw you over to The Late Show Live, hosted this evening, of course, by the woman of the moment. It's Bev Turner.
A camper van and cash could be yours in our very latest Great British Giveaway. You could be driving away in this brand new Benavan 122. This 2026 model, worth over £67,000, comes with all of the mod cons you'd expect. And that's not all, as you'll also get an incredible £25,000 in tax-free cash to boost your bank account this year. For another chance to win a camper van and cash, text prize to 63225. One entry costs £2.50. Plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB20 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 1st of May. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that, because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
We can allow.
Stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
a really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
Good morning, good evening, live from Washington, DC. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and the United States of America.
Because we have a tremendous long-term relationship with the UK, and always was the best until Keir came along.
The special relationship is clearly no more. At least that was what Donald Trump hinted at today. And it's all Keir Starmer's fault. It wasn't just the Prime Minister he wasn't happy with.
NATO's making a very foolish mistake, and I've long said that, you know, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there.
He also appeared to threaten the future of NATO. It was not a good day for relationships, but at least he had something nice to say about me.
Go ahead, please.
Keir Starmer isn't making...
She's a fantastic reporter, by the way. Go ahead.
That's right, I've been at the White House all day. Believe me, it took me by surprise as much as it probably did you. I've been pretty much glued to the president today. We've just hot-footed it from the White House. So I'm going to report back and give you the behind-the-scenes details also tonight.
보고를 경청한 대표자들의 신심충출한 열의 속에 대비는 자기의 역사.
North Korea has held general elections with 99.93% of the vote going to Kim Jong-un, which begs the question, who was the 0.0% for? I'm Bev Turner, this is The Late Show Live. Very warm welcome to The Late Show Live from a very cold Washington, DC. Joining me this evening in Washington, my panel, award-winning former journalist and founder of media advisory experts Mark Albert and political analyst Eric Ham are both here with me in the studio. Good evening, gentlemen. And in London is comedian, broadcaster, GB News favourite, big part of the GB News family indeed, Paul Cox. Thank you for joining us tonight, Paul. Good to see you. Now, today I've spent most of my time in the White House where I represented GB News and asked the President this on behalf of our audience.
Go ahead, please.
Keir Starmer isn't making...
She's a fantastic reporter, by the way. Go ahead.
Thank you. The Prime Minister isn't making the case to the British public as to why he should be supporting you. Could you do that now and talk to the UK and to GB News viewers about why it's in their interest that we help you? Now, a lot of the press conference with the Irish Taoiseach was taken up with slamming our Prime Minister. At one point, Trump turned around. He pointed to that bust of Winston Churchill and said that Sir Keir Starmer is no Churchill. He also slammed his policies on immigration and energy. But his answer to that question to me was possibly the most damning.
Well, because we have a tremendous long-term relationship with the UK. I mean, people would say it's the best. I don't want to get into that, but we've had, it was the longest, the oldest, should be the best. Always was the best until Keir came along, and now, and I like him. He's a nice man. He says everything beautiful. He's a very nice man with a beautiful family. Everything's perfect, but he doesn't produce. And I think it's very inexpensive. I just said, you don't have to send me aircraft carriers, send me a couple of minesweepers. We don't need your aircraft carriers. But even the aircraft carriers, he would only send them after we essentially won. I mean, he's sending them when there are no planes left, when the missiles are down to 8%, They have like 8% of the missiles. The rest we demolished the missiles, and the factories, largely the factories are going even as we speak. They just hit another factory. They have a lot of missile factories. They have a lot of drone factories, and so he's wants to send them when we don't need them. But would like to have minesweepers, because just in case. We don't know that there are any mines down, because we wiped out, I think, 24. They actually have to think of this for a country. They have 24 boats that do nothing but put mines in the water. This doesn't sound like a great country. This doesn't sound like a friendly country, but we killed all of those boats. They're at the bottom of the sea. So we don't even know if there are any mines there, but if there are, we'd like to have a little help in finding them, probably most of them.
We have a tremendous long-term relationship with the UK, it says. Always was the best until Keir came along. Ouch. So remember those words, because in the last few moments the President hosted a traditional Shamrock Bowl presentation with Michael Martin, where he could not be more gushing about their special relationship. Just before I play that for you, try and count the amount of times he says the word special.
But on this special day, we gather here to celebrate an incredible feat of friendship between Ireland and the wonderful place that we call the United States. We call it America. A lot of good names. On St. Patrick's Day, we're here, and it's very, very special. It's always been a special time. Even for me, it's been a special time. I feel like I have Irish blood. I'm not too far. I have Scottish blood. Is that good or bad? I don't know.
I feel like I have Irish blood. Now that, on the day that he's been so critical to our Prime Minister, that must have hurt. Let me know your thoughts. Visit gbnews.com/your say. You can also vote in our poll tonight. Should Keir Starmer resign to save the special relationship with America? Yes or no? Vote by scanning the QR code on the screen. With me now is former Labour advisor Paul Richards. Good evening, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This relationship with Trump has been tricky for Starmer. They've been gentlemanly, they've been diplomatic, but it feels like the gloves are now off. What should the Prime Minister do in response?
Well, I think he keeps a calm head and he takes all of these sort of verbal outbursts with a pinch of salt, really, because we've seen Trump saying these kinds of things, often very late at night, sometimes on Truth Social, for a number of weeks now, and he blows hot and cold, and then he's
Well, it wasn't late at night this morning, Paul. It was about 11 o'clock this morning. And he doesn't drink, so you can't blame him as drink texting. He doesn't even do that. This was 11 o'clock in the morning. This is a press conference. I know, but this is but the implication being, but the implication is that if people are posting things late at night, maybe they're not in control of their faculties. This is at 10:30 in the morning in front of the world's press. That is delivered calmly. There's no suggestion that it's an emotional reaction. What we heard.
He's not a calm person. He's not somebody.
I disagree.
I think is he, Donald Trump. I think a lot of people are questioning the coherence of what he's saying and whether he's going to blow hot and cold on issues. And I think that's fair because he, for example, said the war was over 2 or 3 days ago, and he said he didn't need NATO's help, and now he says he does want NATO's help, and the war isn't.
He hasn't. He said I don't need your help. No, he's still saying it. He's still saying I don't need NATO's help.
Right. So then what's
I don't think he's confused at all. So no. But what do you see as confusion? He said no. He said I came to you. He said I came to the Prime Minister for help, and he didn't offer it. And by the time he called me up and said, "All right, I'll help you out," he said, "Too late. I don't need it now." And the question is, how problematic is that for the UK and our relationship with the most powerful nation in the world?
Well, I suppose if he's right and the war is won and over. And there's no threat from Iran, and he doesn't need NATO's help, and that's why all the NATO nations have said no to sending offensive actions to the region, then there's no problem at all. If, on the other hand, Iran is not actually defeated and is indeed threatening the world's oil supplies in a way that will affect all of the pounds in all of our pockets, and in fact that they are now entering an asymmetric warfare that may take years and have no exit strategy for whatsoever, then it is a problem. And the nature of NATO is that it's a defensive alliance. It's not an offensive alliance. So I don't think he even understands what NATO is for. If you read the treaty, it's very clear. Article 5 is only triggered if there's an attack on a NATO nation in Europe or North America. And so this Middle Eastern adventure is nothing to do with NATO, which is why Germany, France and the UK are saying this is not a matter for NATO.
And Paul, kind of in my defence really of today, my question to him was, can you tell the British public what is in it for them, effectively is what I'm saying. Can you explain to the British public why they need to be leaning into this conflict? Because I probably agree with you that I don't think the majority of the British public do want us to be more involved in an offensive way. I think Keir Starmer is probably reading the mood of the nation to some degree, actually, in terms of whether we should or should not be more involved in this. But the question is, by taking that position, does he sacrifice the relationship that he should have with the president when the president is so domineering and dominating the global agenda?
Well, I think his domineering and dominatingness is rescinding. I think he's becoming less powerful. You saw the resignation today of a member of his administration. I think some of the fractures within his base showing too in America domestically. That's certainly being shown in the opinion polls for Trump because he did go in on a prospectus into the White House on a prospectus of no more foreign wars and America first, and the American people really wanted that. They showed their support for that by electing Donald Trump, and here we are on the foothills of a much bigger conflict in the Middle East, and there will unfortunately be more lives lost on the American side. So, the American public are getting sceptical. Now, your question was about the British public. I think Starmer's approach is not is it going to play or not in the opinion polls. I think it's more about what's the legality of this, what's in Britain's best interests, and it may also be that that's where the public is, and I think you're right that is where the public is in the UK. I don't think we want to see battalions of British troops being sent into Iran, just as though we didn't want them to go into Iraq all those years ago. And so it's I think that the politics is aligned with where Starmer is, and whether you like him or not, I think he is acting in the British interest by putting some distance here and saying, yes, we will defend our territory. Of course, if Cyprus is attacked, we will defend ourselves, but we're not going to send, the Grenadier Guards alongside the Marines into Iran to try and get missile sites or anything else of the kind. And I think Starmer in that is absolutely right.
OK, Paul, good to see you. Thank you so much for staying up. Former Labour advisor Paul Richards, thank you so much. Right, let's also talk now to the Executive Director at the Foundation for Defence of Democracies, Jonathan Shanzer. Jonathan, thank you for joining us this evening on The Late Show Live. Where does this leave the relationship between the UK and the US? Trump asked for help. We didn't give it. And now he says, by the time I wanted your help, by the time you offered your help, sorry, I didn't want it anymore. Where does it sit? Knowing what we know about President Trump, where does this sit, this relationship now?
Well, it's going to stay uneasy for a time, but it's never over with Donald Trump. I mean, I would probably put it this way. He understands that there's still a lot of work to be done between our two nations. I think Keir Starmer is going to be put on ice for a while. He will be in the doghouse. This is the way that Donald Trump operates. He kicks people to the curb for a bit, and then there'll be a time where maybe there's a window and it can be reopened again. But I think for now, we're likely to see the U.S. partnering with other countries and Donald Trump lavishing attention on those world leaders that do eventually come to the Persian Gulf and help out with this operation.
Yeah. At what point do you think he might be asking for more help? Because he was been making it very clear now, I don't need your help. I don't need your help. This war is on track. It might be over in a couple of weeks, he said today. He was asked critically, Jonathan, when somebody in the press conference this morning said about the solution afterwards. He answered that by saying, even if we walked away today, Iran would take 10 years to build up their military capability again. He's clearly seeing it in those terms as opposed to an administration that is left in power and who that might consist of. He's not giving anything away, Jonathan, is he, in terms of who might stay to lead the Iranian people?
No, and I think it's a black box. I mean, first of all, I think we need to be realistic here about what's going on inside Iran. There's two wars that are going on. There's a military war, and the United States and Israel are just taking it to the regime. And you can see the leaders that have that have been killed. You can see the military assets that have been destroyed. And this thing is not over yet. And I think there's just going to be more pounding. And I do believe that the Islamic Republic is going to be left a lot weaker. I think the president's not wrong there. But there is that second war, right? And that second war is the economic war that Iran is waging in return. The Islamic Republic has weaponized oil. It's weaponized the Strait of Hormuz. And I think that's where, the president's asking for help. This is something that's going to affect the entire global economy if it persists. You're going to see, it's not just $100 oil. It could be $150 or $200 a barrel. And that's where I think Great Britain is going to say, uncle. I think it's where the French, the Germans, the Australians, the Japanese, everybody's going to say that's enough. I think people are going, they're not sure that this is where we're going, but I think that this is where the Islamic Republic intends to take the crisis if they continue to take the beating that they're getting right now.
Okay, Jonathan, thank you so much. Executive Director at the Foundation for Defence of Democracies, Jonathan Shanza, there. Really appreciate your time. Right, let me turn to my panel this evening, if I can, to ask you guys your thoughts on the events today in the Oval Office. Mark, let me come to you first. As American broadcaster, you've watched President Trump for years. What kind of mindset do you think he's in now? Do you think he's bitten off more than he can chew in terms of the conflict in Iran?
Well, you're right. I have observed Donald Trump and read a lot of reporting about him over his 2 terms in office. And to me, this is par for the course, to use a golf term, because he likes to golf so much. I do think that he's very astute at trying to play one side off of another, finding those pressure points that he believes if he just presses a little bit more, he can exert that pressure. Today is Great Britain, and it could be another country tomorrow. What is confusing to a lot of American citizens is, first, we obliterated the nuclear program last fall, but now we have to go into Iran because within days they could have a weapon. We have destroyed the Air Force and all the ships, but the U.S. now needs allies to come to the help. So it is rapidly evolving. The reason for going in, how long it's going to take. Donald Trump, the president, has said that the war is basically won, and yet we are asking for allies for more help. So I do think he is trying to exert these pressure points. He's trying to shame some of the allies, perhaps, in providing that assistance. Unclear whether it's going to work, though. This is not something that the allies signed up for.
Eric, do you think that took him by surprise, how little support he's had from allies around the world?
I do. I think Donald Trump has always been able to get his way. And I thought, even at this point, I thought there would at least be a few NATO countries, European allies, perhaps even Japan, that would actually join the president's efforts in Iran. But I think what we're seeing here is a collective effort by many of the United States allies who have decided that this is simply too much more than they can actually handle. And now, given the fact that the United States is in this, and unfortunately they're in this for the long haul, it's very easy to actually get into a war. It's very difficult to actually get out. And I think right now, Donald Trump is looking for an exit strategy. Unfortunately, there just isn't one there available to him.
Yeah, Paul Cost, does it matter, really? As long as their nuclear capability is obliterated, doesn't that mean that all of us sleep better at night, knowing that they cannot nuke the West and similarly can't be funding the terrorist groups around the world?
If they were just days away from a nuclear weapon, then the whole world is safer as a result of Donald Trump's actions. So I think, yes, it is a good thing. It's an incredibly difficult decision for him to make, of course. And I think he's got the biggest challenge of optics in his political career. He is a master of optics, but this is incredibly difficult because he's gone alone. Well, not alone. He's gone with Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israelis. And I think that's also incredibly difficult for him. We need to understand as a collective who is leading this assault on Iran. Is it Israel or is it the US? Because the accusation is always going to be that it's Israel that have given him the intelligence and therefore they have gone on Israel's say-so. Now, irrespective of what you might think of the war, that creates an interesting political optic, which Donald Trump is going to have to manage incredibly carefully.
And that was dealt a huge blow today, Mark, by the resignation of Joe Kent, one of their counterintelligence senior executives, wrote this damning statement saying that he could not support the war when the US was a no imminent threat. There was no imminent threat, he said, from Iran. Trump brushed it off in the press conference today. He said, it's not relevant, it wasn't a serious statement. But is it, Mark?
This pierces the bubble of the story the Trump administration is trying to sell to the American people. That's why it's so devastating. That's why it's getting so much attention all across news outlets across not only the United States but around the world. This is not somebody the Trump administration can say is a left-wing liberal, somebody who has always voted for Democrats, contributed to Democratic candidates. This is not that person. So it's very, very difficult to wave this away as a disgruntled employee. Now, of course, there are skeletons in everybody's closet, but this letter is getting so much attention because it puts in writing and on paper, framed as a moral stand, what so many people have feared is actually the case behind the scenes.
And just for our British audience who don't know, Joe Kent is considered to be to the right of the Republican Party, so much so that when he was nominated to be part of the government, he was written off and he had slurs that he was a far-right activist. And really all he's doing is representing that kind of MAGA base, that male, predominantly young male MAGA attitude, which is this is an Israeli war and America first does not sit alongside the ambition of Israel to destroy the Middle East. And that's why him going under those terms today could potentially have huge blowback for the president. But thank you, gentlemen. We've got to move on for now. We've got a long 2.5 hours still ahead of us, but still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
NATO's making a very foolish mistake, and I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there.
So is the future of NATO itself in doubt now? It certainly looks like it. First, though, tonight,
BBC. But I watched them this morning for some crazy reason, and it was so inaccurate. Their reporting of the war was unbelievable.
my other question to the president has made headlines all around the world. I'll play it to you next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it? Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right.
GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. So, as well as asking about the special relationship in the Oval Office today, I was also fortunate enough to get a second question from the President. And so this was it. Can I ask you how you're doing with your legal case against the BBC and their fake news documentary?
Well, the BBC was incredible. What they did is they had me speaking something I never said. But I watched them this morning for some crazy reason, and it was so inaccurate. Their reporting of the war was unbelievable. We have decimated that country, and if you watch BBC, it's almost like they're fighting us to a draw. They're not fighting us to a draw. It was very inaccurate news. It was fake news.
I think he's right about that. I've watched some of the BBC coverage as well, and I find it incredibly one-sided. Well, fortunately, that question has made the front page of the Daily Telegraph tomorrow. Trump, BBC is against me winning the Iran war. So, Connor Stringer at the Daily Telegraph, you're welcome. Let's talk about this to my panel now as well. Paul, let me come to you first in London. He couldn't resist it, could he? Well, obviously, I asked him about the BBC, and he took the opportunity to broaden it out that not only did they lie about the January 6th events, but also are not on side when it comes to Iran. I was surprised to hear that.
Yes. First of all, Bev, congratulations. 2 questions to Donald Trump, representing the GB News family incredibly well. There, obviously, it's only a matter of time before you are Lady Beverly Turner of Prestwich, I'm sure. But you are absolutely right. It was extraordinary. A lot of things that Donald Trump does are extraordinary. But I said on a previous show on this channel tonight that I think the Iranian war is held up as a win for the BBC, is a win for the left on the basis that they're able to use this in their favour. As terrible as that sounds, and as much as Jonathan Liss had a hissy fit about it, I believe it's true.
What do you mean using it in their favour? In what way? To demonise President Trump as a warmonger?
So, yes, and also when you look at it from, let's say, Labour and Rachel Reeves's perspective, the economy's on its knees, was on its knees long before the Iranian war, and now we're in a position where, from here on in, Rachel Reeves is going to be able to change the optics to make it look as if everything that's going wrong is as a result of Donald Trump's Iranian war.
Yeah, Mark Albert, that's a really good point, isn't it? That governments around the world on their political chessboard will now position President Trump as the cause of all their problems, be it the economy, be it oil. There's some truth to some of the economic implications, but is it fair, do you think, for various politicians around the world to say it's not us, it's him?
Well, I think we've seen that play before, right? No matter what the country is. I would say this, though, talking about Donald Trump's comment about the BBC. In my 25 years in journalism, I embedded with U.S. troops to cover the Iraq War twice. I've embedded with U.S. troops across the continental United States. And it was an incredibly responsible job to make sure that we are being as fair as possible when covering hostilities in another country. Journalists work every day putting themselves on the line, their lives on the line, to bring people the truth. In 25 years in newsrooms, I can count on less than one hand the number of journalists I ever met who deliberately wanted to skew the news. There are journalists every day working very hard to get the truth, and I think that's what journalists are doing covering the Iran war.
But it doesn't work like that. Because
it does.
No, it doesn't, because I've met multiple journalists at the BBC who aren't honest about their bias. They're not honest about the fact that they are leaning towards the left. I will put my hands up here at GB News and say I agree with a lot of the things that President Trump says. It doesn't mean I won't hold him to account if I don't agree, but I happen to agree politically with many of his positions. But I think at the BBC there is a kind of a sort of implied liberalism about many people that work there that they aren't honest about, Eric.
Actually, I think what we're seeing from the president, not just with the BBC, but I think we've seen even domestically how the president has gone after many news organizations in the wake of the Iran war. In fact, we know CNN is one of those organizations that has become on the hot seat. We know that his FCC chair has gone after networks threatening
That's the equivalent of our
license.
Ofcom, the closest to Ofcom.
Yeah, and so I think what we're seeing here is the war, quite frankly, from a narrative perspective, has gotten away from the president. And I know he is desperately trying to reshape that. Donald Trump has been a master at controlling the narrative. And I think that has been what's taking place right now. Even though the United States is technically winning the war, it's the messaging and actually what comes beyond the war is where the president is losing. And I think he's becoming increasingly more isolated both at home and abroad, and it's a problem for him. Donald Trump is someone who likes ultimate authority and control, and right now we see that's getting away from him.
And that, Mark, is precisely why I asked that question today about the BBC, because for him that was the smoking gun. The Panorama documentary being spliced together to depict him as inciting violence when it wasn't the actual words he said. For him, that is evidence of what he sees all around, and that is evidence of the BBC baking in their political bias to what should be their flagship documentary.
So I've never worked for the BBC. All I can speak to are the newsrooms that I've worked for.
You don't need to. You're in, our love.
And all I can tell you is that in every newsroom I was ever in, the vast majority of the journalists are doing incredible work to try and get the facts and do it accurately.
But wouldn't they be slagging off Trump over coffee?
What?
Wouldn't they be slagging off Trump over coffee?
Over coffee?
Yeah. So my point being, they might be sat in the newsroom feeling very virtuous and going, oh, we're being balanced, look how balanced we are. And then they close their laptops, they go and have coffee or have lunch, and they'd be like, oh, he's such a nightmare, isn't he? I mean, I was at the Oscars this weekend, and that kind of implied, snidey one-liners looking at Donald Trump and his wife, actually, over the weekend, as the enemy. You must have seen that, Mark, in the newsrooms. You must have done.
Bev, you can never have a free society without a free press.
I agree with that. But that's a different point. Believe me, I live in the UK. I know what not having a free press looks like, mate. But my point being is that your journalist friends who would sit there feeling all virtuous about being impartial, they all hate Donald Trump. I don't think they think about it. They just do.
To be clear, journalists do have opinions, but it is their job to present both sides, three sides, four sides, whatever it is, and be fair with their stories. I'm not saying that personally journalists are impartial, but there are standards and there are ethics, and I'm saying that the vast majority of journalists that I work with in 25 years are trying incredibly hard to get it right. Are mistakes made? Absolutely. I would not ascribe the motives that you've just mentioned.
Well, I think there's something about that man that is kryptonite to impartiality of British journalists and American journalists, to be honest. And I think that is where this lack of impartiality sits. It's this personal dislike of that man himself and his delivery. Right, let me know what you think at home. gbnews.com/your say. The BBC has declined to comment on this story, but they have previously said, as we have made clear, we will be defending this case. We are not going to make further comments on ongoing legal proceedings. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
Ed Miliband has all the answers, doesn't he? Well, he's now come up with a solution to save pubs. You will despair. I'll reveal it next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB Newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Now, just when you think our politicians can't hate the UK any more than they already do, Energy Secretary Ed Miliband has come up with a genius suggestion to help hospitality reduce energy bills, and he's basically advising them to turn off their fridges overnight. Let me talk now to the landlord of the Dog of Wingham, Mark Bridgen. Mark, there are certain things you can suggest to the British public, but warm beer, my friend, is not one of them unless you are an absolute killjoy and you do not understand what is at the heart of British people, Mark.
Couldn't put it better myself, Ben. This is about as offensive as it gets. Like, you know, I've been speaking to you and your colleagues on GB News for like 3 years now. We've talked about really, really important stuff: utility crisis, minimum wage, the NI, the business rates, and real issues. This is just the most offensive stuff I've heard out of this government. And, you know, I've never had to try harder to not swear on television. This is just,
tell me
I'm one of, you know, thousands of landlords up and down the country that are brilliant at what they do, love their pub, love their staff, love their guests, and are working their bottoms off to stay alive and to tell us that you can save your pub by turning off your fridges and warming up your beer, and it's just mind-blowing. Like, you know, this guy has not got a clue.
It's genuinely like they are trolling us. It's like they're gaslighting us, because the trial scheme they're telling you helpfully? Well, it showed that pubs saved around £48 a week. You save 48 quid a week by turning off your fridge overnight. Cut your blooming VAT. I'm with you. I'm going to swear on this story. Cut the VAT. Cut the business rates. Give them a hand. Just do something. Cut the national insurance for hospitality. Do something to help you. Don't patronise you by telling you, oh, you can save 48 quid a week, as if you've not got enough on your to-do list at the end of the night. How inconvenient would it be to go around turning off all your fridges, pulling them all out from the wall, turning them off at the wall, pushing them back in, waking up in the morning? I can't bear it on your behalf. I'm exasperated.
And look, we've been so desperate over the last 3 years to try anything. You know, I've had our refrigeration experts in, and I've asked the question, you know, would we benefit from turning off the bottle fridges every night? And they're like, you're going to save a tiny amount of power, but every morning when you switch them on again, they're having to work twice as hard to get everything chilled, so you're probably just going to damage your fridges. So yeah, his advice will just mean we have bigger bills in repairs or replacements. Like, it's so patronising. This is offensive. You know, I'm dealing with the killer taxes. I'm dealing with the business rates. I'm dealing with, you know, minimum wage going up. I'm dealing with them like crippling the public having any money to spend anywhere, and various legislations that affect hospitality. I'm dealing with all that, but this is just, like you said, it's patronising and it's offensive. He just, you know, I could strangle the guy.
We wouldn't recommend that, and we're certainly not inciting violence, but I'm with you on the fantasy of doing so, Mark, when it comes to Ed Millipede.
It's just so offensive.
It is,
you know,
it is.
brilliant.
And that's the thing that baffles me. You know, I'm a bit like, you may not understand your economic policy, you may not understand how to help hospitality, but you not understand people. Do you not understand the mentality of the people that are running the pubs in this country? That complete lack of connection or empathy to put themselves in your shoes. And I don't know what you do about that, Mark, because you can't teach someone empathy if they instinctively don't have it. I don't know what to suggest to you. What's your best hope here for the pubs?
You know, it's when they're coming out with things like this, it feels like our pleas for the VAT or the national insurance or the business rates, I will keep making the pleas, I will keep speaking to you, I'll keep fighting, I'll keep working hard, but it feels even more pointless than ever when, instead of listening to the industry's pleas, you know, the bigger lights than me of our industry making these points, begging for the VAT cut, and they're telling us to warm up our beer and turn off our fridges. It's just insanity. I'm just staggered, and the whole industry is offended by this.
Mark, I had to explain to Mark here in the studio when he saw it said landlord dog of Wingham. He said, "What on earth does that mean? What does that mean, dog of Wingham?" Do you get it now?
I do get it.
Okay, good. So the
hopefully I can visit one day.
So the gastro pub is called the Dog, and it's in Wingham. And remind us where Wingham is, Mark.
Just near Canterbury and Kent. So we're big in news at the moment.
Excellent. Good. Well, if you get down there this weekend, everybody, and have some nice cold beer. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Mark Bridgen there. Right, let me know your thoughts at home. Thanks, mate. I'm sure you will. I'm sure you'll all be getting in touch now with your head in your hands. Take your head out of your hands, get your hands, and type me a little message. GBNews.com/say. Still to come this evening on The Late Show Live.
Okay. And on the right side, this is where the cancer is. So we're doing the mastectomy.
One of the stars of Welcome to Wrexham, that documentary about football and Hollywood stars, well, she's filmed her own double mastectomy as part of a new documentary about her cancer battle. She joins me in the studio next. This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right.
GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
Because the failure is...
You're
the failure is...
deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Now, my next guest, I do also confess to calling her a friend since I've been in Washington, D.C., so I'm delighted to bring this story to you. But you will know her best as a well-known face from the Welcome to Wrexham documentary, all about a couple of Hollywood stars taking on Wrexham Football Club. Well, she got breast cancer, and she's now filmed her own double mastectomy as part of a new documentary about her cancer battle. And in the programme, Maxine Hughes examines the reality of cancer care in Wales, raising concerns about delays in diagnosis and gaps in aftercare. Let's have a quick look.
So I'm just going to put my initials right here, Maxine, and I'm going to write exactly what we're going to do, okay?
Okay.
So this is the left side, this is the healthy side, so HV is my initials, and then I'm gonna do a mastectomy, sentinel lymph node. This is mapping, so we're not removing any lymph nodes, and we're gonna remove the port. Okay, and on the right side, this is where the cancer is, so we're doing the mastectomy, the sentinel lymph node biopsy, and that's it, right? And Dr. Convit is doing the reconstruction on both sides.
Just write a few more things.
Yeah, okay.
All right, cool.
So that was Maxine, and she joins me in the studio now. I'm delighted to say, we were just discussing, so when was that, Maxine?
That was early August last year.
Okay, so that was just about the time that I met you. And what inspired you to want to document your journey? I mean, look at you now, you look amazing. and you're well?
Definitely a lot better than I was a year ago.
Yeah, okay, great. So tell us why you wanted to film it.
I mean, I'm a journalist, as you know, and my first instinct when I got the diagnosis was to pick up a camera. I think, you know, as journalists, we expect people to open up their stories and hearts and lives to us every day. And for me, it was like a kind of a natural thing, you know, pick up the camera, cover the story, but I had become the story. In doing so, I started doing some research and realised that, things are pretty different depending on where you live in the world. And obviously I'm from Wales. I have 2 sisters that live there, nieces. What's the situation like there? And I did some research and I thought, well, it's not great, actually. There's a lot of room for improvement here. The waiting times are some of the worst in Europe. All the NHS across the board in Wales are failing on waiting times for cancer. The NHS itself, the NHS workers do an amazing job.
Yeah.
And when you get to the point of having treatment, you get wonderful treatment. But the process of getting there is very difficult.
So you effectively set out to answer the question, would you still be here now had you still been living in the UK and particularly living in Wales?
That's exactly what we ask in the documentary. I interviewed all sorts of people, including people who work on the front lines of cancer and the charity Tenevis, and they said, I don't know if you'd be alive if you were having this treatment here in Wales.
Give us an idea of how it happened here in America. So you go to a GP like you would in the UK?
No. So there's a big difference. Let's remember that in America, to get great healthcare, you have to have great insurance, and not everybody has great insurance. So that's a caveat, right? But if you do have insurance, you go directly to a specialist. You can go to a women's clinic. If you have a symptom, you can call a radiology and ask for a mammogram. If you're in the UK, across the UK, you go to your GP, and as a woman, you have to convince in some cases a GP that you should then be referred to a specialist. Now, in England, the waiting time from the point of concern is, I think, 31 days. In Wales, it's 62 days. It's 62 days, but they're not meeting those targets. They're not even meeting 75%. And now the Welsh Government has set an 80% target by this month.
And so what was your wait time here? What was your process in America?
I didn't have a wait time here. So I went to I called the radiologist. I had the appointment immediately. They saw something, obviously. I could feel that I had a lump. I had the biopsy the next day. And then I was seeing a surgeon the following week. And I was sitting down having the chemotherapy, because I had to have chemo before the mastectomy, within 2 weeks of having that diagnosis.
And there will be people at home in the UK watching this, Maxine, just despairing at that disparity in care between America, who is getting it right, and the UK. But they're not always getting it right. Just reflect on that a little bit about the system here.
I mean, there are people here, for sure, that are in a system, maybe they're on Medicaid or, what a lot of people will refer to as Obamacare, and they're not necessarily getting treatment very quickly, right? Or they don't have insurance and they're having to battle to get treatment, or they're maybe not even getting it at all. People here go bankrupt if they don't have good insurance. But if you have insurance, you get some of the best doctors in the world, but you also get great, very quick treatment, and you don't have to go through these hoops. I mean, the biggest difference, regardless of waiting times, as a female, I would say, is that here you don't have to go to a GP. Yeah. If you're a woman and you have a problem specific to a female, you want to go to a specialist.
So how do you know, though? But how would you know? So I'm just thinking, if it was, I guess a lump in your breast is fairly, your first port of call is going to be, have I got breast cancer? But if it's something like ambiguous, I don't know, stomach pain or something, do you then go straight to a women's doctor, or do you go to somebody else?
In the US, you can still go to a specialist, yeah.
But if you don't know what your condition is,
yeah, but you know where it is in your body,
right?
So you go to that doctor, right? If it's ear, nose, and throat, you'll go to an ear, nose, and throat doctor.
Yeah.
If it's a female, if it's
part of your anatomy,
exactly. Yeah. Then you'll go to a women's clinic, right? So and they will very quickly get you through the system.
So what can we learn, would you say, in the UK compared to America with our system? Should we be partly privatising it, do you think, without getting too political? Like what?
Yeah,
can we learn?
I mean, I don't want to answer that question. I don't even live in the UK, and I don't think I'm the right person to answer that question. I think what we do need is specialised care. We need to look at particularly cancer and look at those waiting times and look at how to improve things. And I would say in Wales, what I would like to see is the Welsh government, who wouldn't do an interview, by the way, for this film, focusing on the shortfulls, because it's not a political issue.
It shouldn't be a political issue, should it?
Cancer in the UK, cancer affects 1 in 2 people who live in the UK.
Yeah.
It's not a political issue. It doesn't matter where you sit on the political spectrum.
And why do you think they wouldn't give you an interview? Because they know those figures are damning.
I think, I don't know. We asked for an interview over and over again. We didn't get an interview from the Welsh First Minister, and we didn't get an interview from the Health Minister. And that's concerning to me as a journalist, number one, that there isn't the transparency that I can ask for an interview about an issue that's so important. Because, you know, I've interviewed many other people from all across the political spectrum in Wales, but I don't understand why it was so difficult for us to get some of those very, very difficult questions answered.
Well, it's a difficult topic, and it's out tomorrow. It's called Maxine Hughes, Cancer at What Cost? Where can people watch it briefly?
On BBC iPlayer. It should be up there right now, actually.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Maxine, thank you so much. Right, don't go anywhere. Still to come, a lot more on today's press conference with President Trump. Stay with us.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a cracker of a spring day for most of England and Wales. Lots of sunshine, quite warm by this afternoon. Some parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland seeing some sunshine, but there is this cloudier zone over Northern Ireland, southern Scotland in particular. A little bit of light rain and drizzle possible in places here through the morning, but tending to peter out. So the odd shower into the Western Isles, but much of northern Scotland dry, and some sunny spells certainly for Aberdeenshire. Lots of sunshine further south, light winds, temperatures jumping up. 18, 19, we could easily see the first 20 of the year in parts of West Wales. Further north, still that cloudier zone affecting parts of Northern Ireland and southern Scotland, and still the odd shower just moving up towards Orkney, Caithness and Sutherland. But as I said, Aberdeenshire generally staying dry. The cloud thick enough for a little bit of light rain and drizzle, particularly on the southwestern parts of Scotland. But the rain and drizzle should be easing from Northern Ireland, staying quite cloudy here into this evening, but generally clear skies for England and Wales, with a bit more of a breeze coming in from the east. It will be a little cooler on these eastern coasts through the day today, and that will continue to strengthen a little bit over the next couple of days. The rain may pep up a little bit overnight across parts of central and eastern Scotland, but it should stay fairly light. Clearer skies to the north and plenty of clear skies to the south. That will allow some mist and fog patches to form, and it will allow it to turn quite chilly tonight. Some pockets of frost just about possible in some rural spots, but most places staying a little bit above zero. Into Thursday, another cracking day. Not quite as warm, perhaps a bit more of a breeze blowing along the south coast. Duller day for the southeast of Scotland, northeast England, and under this cloudier zone, it'll feel quite chilly, I suspect, with temperatures only 9 or 10 Celsius. But elsewhere, should be a sunnier day for Northern Ireland, so feeling warmer here. And again, further south, temperatures widely into the mid-teens.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis, in the car,
in the kitchen,
GB News Breakfast is there with the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
Fist. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
No, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back live from Washington, D.C. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America.
Because we have a tremendous long-term relationship with the UK, and always was the best until Keir came along.
The special relationship is in its death throes. At least that was what Donald Trump hinted at today. It's all Keir Starmer's fault, and it wasn't just our Prime Minister that Trump is not happy with.
NATO's making a very foolish mistake, and I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there.
He appeared to threaten the future of NATO itself. It wasn't a good day for relationships. It's quite a good day for my relationship with President Trump. He said this.
Go ahead, please.
Keir Starmer isn't making...
She's a fantastic reporter, by the way. Go ahead.
Well, I was at the White House all day today, but I was shocked by that. What did you say? I just sort of went, oh, thanks. But I've been with the President for most of the day, and I'll let you know what was going on behind the scenes. Of course, it's St. Patrick's Day, and so he was in quite a joyous mood. I think it was quite a nice day for President Trump today, actually. Also, this evening.
And it's an honor to have him as king. And, he's, I think he represents the country so well.
Donald Trump confirmed that the King is coming to America in April, but should he postpone the visit to later in the year because of the Iran war? Well, that's what a top Labour politician has suggested today. Also tonight.
보고를 경청한 대표자들의 신심충출한 열의 속에
Congratulations to Kim Jong-un, who has won a very democratic election in North Korea. He got 99.93% of the vote, which begs the question, who was the 0.07%? Who were they voting for, and how dare they? I'm Bev Turner. This is The Late Show Live. Remember, no breaks this hour or the next. So I hope you've been to the loo, gentlemen, because you don't get to go now for another 120 minutes. I forgot, actually, so I might have to duck out at some point. But you're an experienced broadcaster, Mark. You can hold the fort for me if I have to go for a quick wee.
You got it.
We've also got, sorry to tell you who they are, shouldn't I really, in case you're just joining us, media advisory, founder of Media Advisory Experts, Mark Albert, and political analyst, friend of the show, Eric Ham, and in London, comedian and broadcaster, Paul Cox. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us this evening. Now, earlier today, President Trump appeared to threaten the future of NATO.
I think NATO's making a very foolish mistake. And I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there. So everyone agrees with us, but they don't want to help. And we as the United States have to remember that, because we think it's pretty shocking.
Well, that was this morning, of course, in the Oval Office, and he went on to slam NATO, saying because of the fact that we have had such military success, this is a Truth Social post, we no longer need or desire the NATO countries' assistance. In capital letters, we never did. Now, this came after the Trump administration's top official on counter-terrorism resigned from his position with a damning letter citing opposition to the war in Iran and urged the president to reverse course. He posted the letter on X, formerly Twitter. It's National Counterterrorism Centre Director Joe Kent. And he said Iran posed no imminent threat to America. He claimed the Trump administration, quote, started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Now, the White House has dismissed the letter, saying that the president had compelling evidence that Iran was going to attack America first. And the president said that Kent's resignation letter made him realise it was a good thing that he's out. He disagreed with Kent's assessment of the Iranian threat, he said. Let's talk now to President Trump's former National Security Council Chief of Staff, friend of the show, Fred Fleets. Fred, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. Now, what did you make of Joe Kent's resignation letter? For a lot of the young, we've talked about them before, the young male MAGA base, this was the proof they needed that President Trump was led into this conflict by Benjamin Netanyahu. What did you make of it, Fred?
Well, Bev, it's great to be here. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and congrats on your Oval Office appearance with President Trump. That's really cool. Look, this letter was outrageous. The evidence that Iran was a serious threat to the U.S. and the world was very obvious. President Trump said Iran cannot get a nuclear weapon. Secretary Rubio made it clear that Iran was amassing a missile shield that would have made attacks on Iran's nuclear weapons program impossible by the end of the year. Kent knew that, and it's amazing he wrote this on the same day that Al Jazeera, of all places, the anti-American, pro-Iran Al Jazeera, published an op-ed that said that this operation's working, it's making the region more successful. But what's really disgusting is how Kent decided to blame this on the Israel lobby and on Israel, and we all know what he means there. Anti-Semitism, hatred of Israel. His arguments are so weak, he had to stoop to that level to make his case. What Trump is doing is very popular with his MAGA base. It's not popular with Democrats. Most independents are not for it, but that's because the media has been so incessantly negative. This has been a successful operation. It's made the world more peaceful, more secure. I think President Trump will be convincing the majority of the Americans of that when he ends this operation. I think it's going to end in a couple of weeks.
Well, that's what he said today, Fred, actually, that he thinks it's going to end in a couple of weeks, but he didn't have any good answer, maybe you could say, depending on what you mean by good. He didn't have a solid answer as to what a post-conflict Iran should look like in terms of its leadership. Is he best to stay out of that discussion, Fred, or do the Iranian people need to know that he has a plan?
Well, I don't like to call this a regime change operation. I call it a regime weakening operation that's created opportunities for the Iranian people to take back their country. And there's been signs just over the last 12 hours of demonstrations in Iran. They were in conjunction with an Iranian holiday, people demonstrating in the streets in defiance of the regime. We don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks to months. My hope is that the regime has been weakened enough, fractured enough, that there'll be enough defections, people not showing up for work, that the Iranian people can take back their country. In the meantime, I believe that the U.S. will end this operation, and there will be a residual U.S. naval force in the Arabian Sea to keep an eye on things and maybe to strike again if Iran was to try something offensive.
We've been talking, Fred, this evening about the relationship between the President and the Prime Minister of the UK. That relationship has never looked weaker. I'm sure if the two men were in the room together, they would do the diplomatic thing. They would shake hands. We've seen President Trump do it before. He did it with Mamdani, the new New York mayor. They were slinging mud at each other, but get them behind the Oval Office desk and they were convivial at best, let's say. What do you think Keir Starmer should do to win back President Trump's affections, or should he not bother?
Well, I think it's really disappointing that the UK was not with us in this operation. I mean, I know the UK hasn't spent a lot on defense and it doesn't have a lot of forces to send, but we benefit by having the Council of British leaders and military officials. They really should be there. And I hope he will make a decision to help us some way in mopping up this operation. We'll get over this. We have a strong relationship that will survive differences between politicians and policies. We simply know that. I don't think the relationship is in danger. Our relationship with NATO is not in danger. But for the time being, it's taken a big hit, and that's because of a lack of leadership by Keir Starmer.
And where does this leave NATO? You know, established in 1949, credited with having kept peace for decades across the world. Do we still need NATO, Fred? And should America still be the main kind of the leader of that organization?
Look, Trump's national security strategy makes it clear that we're not pulling out of Europe. We're not pulling out of NATO. There's going to be some reimagining of NATO because the U.S. has to deploy forces in other areas of the world, to the Western Hemisphere, to the Asia Pacific. But, I mean, there will be changes that Trump would like to see Europe and NATO nations take primary responsibility for defending NATO. But NATO's not going away, and the U.S. is not pulling out of NATO.
OK, Fred, thank you so much. Former National Security Council Chief of Staff, Fred Fleece there. Great to see you. Just before we move on, I want to show you some of the latest shots from Beirut. We're hearing there has been shelling there. There's been an explosion. Reports of heavy Israeli airstrikes. We're looking at the skyline there of Beirut. Now, last night, Israeli military said it had also begun an additional wave of strikes on Hezbollah infrastructure in Beirut. Looking at the live or the latest images here, I think we just saw a flash of light there as missiles descended onto what is clearly a residential area. Let's talk now. Well, let's talk to my panel about this, actually, Mark and Eric and Paul in London. You know, when I see these live pictures, and we take them intermittently, it kind of, they leave, I find them rather unmoving. Apologies to the directors and the producers who are putting them in, but immediately after that, when I think, well, it doesn't look like a huge amount, and then I think, hang on a minute, that's people's houses. That is residential area, Mark, on which a bomb has just dropped, and people will have just been injured, and people have just died. And I think that humanising of this conflict is really important, actually, because it's just sort of happening over there, isn't it? And it's just something that has to be done to stop Iran getting a nuclear bomb. But when we see this, that huge explosion there lighting up the night sky, it does bring home that this cannot continue for very long without all of the public not being on board.
I remember in 2001, after 9/11, we went to the home of a family whose service member was serving abroad. And we had just interviewed them. Well, what if the U.S. goes into Afghanistan? We were driving back to the TV station, and that's when it happened. Bulletin, the U.S. has now launched it. And we turned around and we went back to the family's home. And so whatever side of the conflict you're on, in whatever country you're on, war is completely unpredictable. You see the smoke plume there rising from the horizon? Who was under that smoke plume? Yeah. Now, it could have been a target, absolutely a target of war and perhaps an accused terrorist, but it could be an innocent family. We saw the girls killed at this girls' school in Iran right after the beginning of hostilities. War has innocent people die.
They do seem, Eric, from what we know, and I know that truth is the first casualty of war, but they do seem to be excellent America and Israel at targeting specific individuals and hopefully taking them out cleanly. But when you see a shot like that, it feels rather unlikely.
Yeah, that's true. But we do know that Israel has been very precise with many of its targets. In fact, we know today they took out a top security leader. And so I think it makes clear that there are no shortage of people that have been targeted in this war. But also we have to remember, as Mark mentioned, there's always going to be a tremendous amount of collateral damage. And we're seeing that play out not just in Iran, but also in neighboring countries where many thought they were immune from this level of violence. And clearly, right now, they are looking for assistance, they're looking for resources, they're looking for help, and they're looking for it directly from the United States. And so I think this war is touching a lot of people, not just there, but also around the globe. And it makes clear that war oftentimes is messy, and there's been a growing conversation here, particularly with our elected officials, in terms of those who have actually served in war and know the stakes and know what it means. In fact, Joe Kent, the individual who resigned today, this was a former, not only someone who served in the military, but was a special forces. His wife died as a result of a suicide bomb in Syria. And so he knows what this means. He knows exactly what it looks like up close and personal. And I think given the fact that what we're seeing play out right now, it's why he came to the decision that he did, regardless of what people might think of it. But this is someone who has seen it up close, who has been touched by it in a very, very personal way and knows the cost in a very intimate way as well.
See, I don't think, Paul Cox, that President Trump has the stomach for these sorts of pictures. And I think Benjamin Netanyahu does. I genuinely think Benjamin Netanyahu is not remotely troubled by blowing the living daylights out of these sorts of countries. I don't think he does at all. But I don't think President Trump, given how often he wants to make clear that he has got an eye on that Nobel Peace Prize, that he wants to be known as the president of peace, I think it does play into the idea that Israel has to some degree forced America into a bit of a corner, because I don't think Trump likes this lack of humanity that we're seeing before our eyes.
Yeah, I think you're right, Bev. And I think actually there's been flickers of that across Donald Trump's face when he's been speaking about it. I don't think he revels in this whatsoever. And I'm sure there are people out there, particularly people who don't like Donald Trump, think that he is gung-ho in some way. This isn't in his nature. This isn't what he wants. What he does believe in is peace through strength. And in order for us all here on the panel to comment on this with clarity, unfortunately, our job is to place the humanity to one side. And war is a human story. And the other way round, of course, is true, which is that Hezbollah are taking advantage of people's good nature. They are planting themselves right in the middle of these neighbourhoods where people live. And let's not forget that Hezbollah is the reason that Beirut is being struck. Hezbollah fired missiles at the UK base in Cyprus. And it's Hezbollah that, in terms of what's happening in Lebanon here, who are responsible for what we are seeing. Now, that doesn't take away from the humanity of this story, and it doesn't mean that we shouldn't discuss the rights and wrongs of the war. But I think it's important sometimes just to place the humanity to one side and make some of the points clear, Bev.
Yeah, I think you're right. And do you see that, Mark, that maybe there is a flicker? I saw it today. When you watch President Trump up close and you see him in a room of strangers, it tells you a lot about a person when you see them in a room of strangers. How is the eye contact? How are the handshakes? How are the questions? And he is nothing but friendly, warm, convivial, gracious and humble, and he treats everybody in the room. He's got that thing, if you can walk with kings but keep the common touch, to quote Rudyard Kipling at 1:17 in the morning. He's got that going on. I genuinely believe that, and I don't think he's got the stomach, like I say, for a protracted war which will see the death of civilians.
Well, certainly we have seen on other issues that Donald Trump does not like when the news coverage starts going in a different direction, hence the quote taco trade, right? Tariff and chicken out, or Trump always chickens out. That was coined because in the wake of images of stock market collapse with 1,000 points down and other impacts on the tariffs we're bringing to the economy, that then he would find a reason to take a step back.
Yeah.
So will we see something like an off-ramp?
It was cast as a criticism. Obviously, taco is meaning Trump always chickens out. It's a criticism, but is it a criticism if you are pursuing a policy that you feel the human cost of which is too much? Isn't it okay to row back, regardless of your political stripes?
It is absolutely a strength for someone, whether you're the president, you're a journalist, whomever you are. If you are assessing a situation and you're self-aware enough to say, this is not going the way that I thought it would. You make a trade, you take your kid to a certain school, you have to be self-aware enough to say, hey, this is not working out. I think for Donald Trump, being the president of the United States, there is a massive political dimension to this, which makes some video, some images unpalatable.
Yeah. What do you think, Eric? Is these kind of images, domestic areas? Now we've got our inbox. A lot of people are saying, remember, Hezbollah are using their people as a shield. They are living within residential areas precisely so that civilians will get killed. It's probably a very good point. But does President Trump have the stomach for this?
I don't think he does, and that's okay not to. I remember interviewing the late General Colin Powell, and he talked about the U.S.-led invasion into Haiti, where he went as part of a delegation. It was himself, it was former Senator Bill Nunn, and former President Jimmy Carter, to try to stop the military junta and stave off a U.S. invasion by President Bill Clinton. And we're talking about a man who had been to war, someone who was respected by everyone in the military, and he talked about how he was actively trying to do everything he could to ensure that there was no engagement in Haiti by the United States, because he knows exactly what it looks like. He knows exactly what it means. And I think it's okay, and I think for leaders to not have a stomach, per se, for this type of thing is something that I think is welcome and something most people would want in their leader, because again, we know that oftentimes there's a cost, and a lot of times we may not know what the hidden or the untold cost is. And for someone who is acutely aware of that, I think that brings enormous levity to situations like what we're seeing play out right now.
Linda's got in touch at home. Good evening. Good morning, Linda, saying this is saving us all from the horrors that the Iranians have had to deal with. Paul Cox is right, and he understands exactly how it is. Paul, because we're not seeing so many pictures of the Iranian people, particularly the women on the streets, as we saw a few months ago, do you think that part of this narrative is slipping out of people's minds a little bit? The job to help the Iranian people themselves, who have been living under this horrible regime for so long?
Yes, I think it's incredibly important to remind people of that. In the same way we have Remembrance Sunday, it's not there for ceremonial purposes. It's there to remind us of why we went to war in the first place, and those that sacrificed their lives in order for us to live as comfortably as we do now. There's no way, if we were constantly next to a country like Iran, that we'd have this sort of wet Labour government that we've got now. You need strong people to run a country that's that close to terror. So we're very, very lucky where we are. One of the reasons we're not seeing the people on the streets of Iran in the same way is they know that whether the regime is weakened or not, there's still a lot of supporters of the regime, and they may well be in the minority, but it's a hugely aggressive minority who have access to nearly all of the weapons in Iran. So there's a reason that there hasn't been this uprising, and of course there are bombs flying about, so people don't want to be on the street. But I think it's an incredibly good point. We need to remind ourselves of why we did this in the first place. A lot of people will have you believe it's purely about oil. It's not. It's about preserving the rights of the people capital of Iran. And a lot of them which are in London, particularly north parts of London where I frequent, they are very glad this is happening and they hope for a brighter future, and perhaps we've got to go through this darkness before the dawn is upon us, Bev.
Yeah, absolutely. Well put, Paul. Graham has said, only God can judge Trump and God is behind him. Catherine said, I think it's in every country's interest to get boots on the ground now. It's the only way to weed out these evil, barbaric cowards. I don't like that idea, actually, Catherine. Boots on the ground, Mark?
Well, and real quick, this is the first time in Donald Trump's second term where we are seeing images like this. If you'll remember, in Venezuela, when he was bombing in Iran last summer, very quick, very clean, lots of successful headlines. This is much, much different and going on much, much longer.
Yeah. Although it has only been, what, 2 weeks? Going into the third week now, aren't we? It was a Saturday morning when he started bombing, and it will be the third Saturday this week, so probably longer than he liked, but not that long yet. Let's hope we're not still talking about it in another 3 weeks' time. So, Labour MP Dame Emily Thornberry has tried to make herself relevant by joining calls for the King's state visit to America to be delayed after President Trump launched a series of attacks on the Prime Minister over his reluctance to support the war in Iran. So if you remember, the King and Queen Camilla are due to travel across to America in April as part of the celebrations to mark the 250th anniversary of American independence. Well, this afternoon, the Prime Minister's spokesperson declined to comment on whether or not the trip should go ahead, claiming it's not for me to discuss future royal engagements, the details of which haven't yet been confirmed. It is a bit perplexing, given that the Prime Minister, it was the Prime Minister, last year, who hand-delivered a letter from the King inviting Trump to the UK for a state visit. Do you remember this?
It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you.
The answer is yes.
It was so cringe. It was so cringe watching that. I mean, they've come a long way, that romantic couple, haven't they? Well, joining me in Washington, my panel's still here. Let's discuss this. Should the royal visit be delayed, Paul Cox? Let me come to you as our Brit down the line there. Emily Thornberry just clutching her pearls, trying to be all huffy about it, and we don't like President Trump, so we shouldn't go and play with him and in his toy box. We don't like him. What's she talking about?
Cards on the table, full transparency. Not a fan of Thornberry. Never have been. Very unlikely to ever become one. I'm just going to park that for a moment and try and talk about this in a professional manner. We should absolutely go. I've said this before, and I'll say it right now. The royal family and its visits anywhere, UK or outside the UK, are above the politics of the day and must remain so. Supporting the US or going to the US is highly important. They're not doing it on behalf of the Labour government, actually, when they do this. They're doing it on behalf of Great Britain. And people in Great Britain don't all support the Labour Party. People like myself would be very happy for the King and Queen, and perhaps even Will and Kate, to go to Washington and see Donald Trump and show that we are very supportive of the US still, Bev.
That is such a good point, Paul Cox. You make a lot of good points, but that was possibly your highlight of the evening. It's only downhill from now on, and we've still got an hour and a half left because, frankly, we've never needed a royal visit more. We've never needed it more. Emily Thornberry, you absolute lunatic. What are you talking about? We've never needed it more, Eric Ham.
I think this makes clear, if in fact the visit does take place, that the special relationship does in fact continue, and that we see leaders all the time in difficult moments, but that does not shake or somehow dispel the overall relationship. And I think the fact that the royal family is actually coming here for the purpose of celebrating America's birthday, I think it makes clear that this is beyond petty politics. but this is the celebration of freedom. This is a celebration of independence. This is a celebration of that special relationship. And so I think it would actually go beyond what we're hearing from the president about Keir Starmer and about this war, but makes clear that the UK still values the United States. And we know that when Donald Trump exits the stage, there is still going to be that relationship that is always going to be seen as sacrosanct.
It's like your best mate not coming to your 21st, Mark, isn't it? It's like your best mate from childhood. And maybe you've gone through your teenage years and you've sort of fallen out a bit. It sometimes happens with your best mate from childhood. But you get to your 21st birthday and you think, I really want them to be there because they are my best mate after all. They've always been my ally. And then you don't show up because of people like Emily Thornberry who think it's more powerful to stay away than to get involved.
Well, you know, you only turn 250 once.
Correct.
And so
you better.
Right, you better. And so with the clip that you just played, where the Prime Minister theatrically pulls out the letter in his breast pocket, what made that so effective was, one, it was great television, and the President Donald Trump, loves great television. But number two, it was historic. No U.S. president had been granted a second state visit invitation, and so that also hit that first, greatest, et cetera. And so, one way or another, I would be shocked if the British royal family did not come to mark the U.S. 250th anniversary.
Yeah. Jack Stooks, let's talk to a royal commentator now. Jack Stooks, I want the King to go one step further, actually, now. I've whipped myself into another bit of a frenzy. It's all that talk of warm beer. It's wound me up tonight, Jack. I want King Charles to come out and say, Emily Thornberry, zip it, I'm going, and the UK has never needed me to go more than now, Jack.
Hi. I think it's quite difficult, you know, with the king. He isn't part of the government, and it's, you know, the government can decide on where these tours happen. So the state visit has been already arranged. The king's itinerary will probably be done about 3 months in advance. So it's not unlikely that he's suddenly going to, you know, he will carry on, is what I'm trying to say. Him suddenly saying, no, I don't want to go, it just wouldn't look right on the king. He's had 2 state visits here with President Trump. You know, President Trump's come. They've had him visit. We've seen these sort of amazing pictures of the royal family showing the family around, and they've now been invited over there to America, and, you know, the invitation's been accepted. So for it to suddenly be rescinded, it does seem quite odd. And I think Keir Starmer's probably in this situation now where he's sort of thinking, oh, should I cancel it? Should I not cancel it? Should I cancel it? Should I not cancel it? Whereas the royal family don't tend to do that. They tend to stick to their guns. And, you know, if they've been invited somewhere, they normally, they do normally do it.
It would be such a furore if King Charles did not attend, because as Paul said, he's not meant to be political. That's the point. He's above politics. But if he doesn't come, Jack, it would look political. It would look like all those people we're seeing on the screen there, actually not all of them because Georgia Maloney was on that picture, but all those politicians who are leaving the president out in the cold at the moment in terms of Iran and saying, no, sorry, we're not getting involved. It would look like King Charles was also siding with them, wouldn't it? I mean, that it would have to be that reason. There could be safety concerns, of course. This is a country at war we're talking about. They could use it. He's also a man who has cancer. It could be a health concern. But whatever the reason is, it would be read into as having been a decision because Starmer's got on the phone and said, don't go and play with him. He's not my friend.
I do think this is more to do with the politics side, but with the king, like you say, he doesn't get involved in politics. Yes, I know he does in a way where he can try and sort of ease things over. You know, he might be able to, for instance, he will want to come and celebrate the 250th anniversary of independence in America. That's not for himself, that's for the American people. You know, that's coming for America. So it's not. He's not coming saying, oh, I'm coming because I support a war, or I'm coming because I don't support a war. He's doing it for the people. And I think it's more to do with people than anything else. But the king will probably, you know, have a chat with all the different people, and I'm sure things will be discussed where he might be able to, make things slightly easier between Starmer and President Trump. But I think time will tell, and I do hope that that it does happen.
Yeah, I do too, Jack, very much so. Thank you so much. Jack Stooks there, royal commentator who used to work for the King. I just think it would be dreadful if that meeting now got cancelled because of all the politics of this. I think it would be awful. I want Charles to go one step further, like I say, and actually come out and say, I am going, and confirm it. There has been obviously some speculation because we don't know the date yet as to whether it is definitely happening. But I've spoken to various people who are involved in the event who say, yeah, as far as we know, it's absolutely happening. People that work for maybe Commonwealth organisations or charities, they say that they believe it's 100% happening. When would we know the date, do you think, Mark?
The day before?
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but probably close hold.
Yeah.
But what I would say, a couple months ago on this program, I mentioned that with the King's visit, that could help smooth over the Chagos Islands, the Diego Garcia base issue. And so I think there are multiple fronts where a visit from the King could repair some of those strains.
Yeah. Okay, stay with us. gbnews.com/yoursay for your comments, but we're just going to take a very quick look at your British weather now.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a cracker of a spring day for most of England and Wales. Lots of sunshine, quite warm by this afternoon. Some parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland seeing some sunshine, but there is this cloudier zone over Northern Ireland, southern Scotland in particular. A little bit of light rain and drizzle possible in places here through the morning, but tending to peter out. So the odd shower into the Western Isles, but much of northern Scotland dry, and some sunny spells certainly for Aberdeenshire. Lots of sunshine further south, light winds, temperatures jumping up. 18, 19, we could easily see the first 20 of the year in parts of West Wales. Further north, still that cloudier zone affecting parts of Northern Ireland and southern Scotland, and still the odd shower just moving up towards Orkney, Caithness and Sutherland. But as I said, Aberdeenshire generally staying dry. The cloud thick enough for a little bit of light rain and drizzle, particularly on the southwestern parts of Scotland. But the rain and drizzle should be easing from Northern Ireland, staying quite cloudy here into this evening, but generally clear skies for England and Wales with a bit more of a breeze coming in from the east. It will be a little cooler on these eastern coasts through the day today, and that will continue to strengthen a little bit over the next couple of days. The rain may pep up a little bit overnight across parts of central and eastern Scotland, but it should stay fairly light. Clearer skies to the north and plenty of clear skies to the south. That will allow some mist and fog patches to form, and it will allow it to turn quite chilly tonight. Some pockets of frost just about possible in some rural spots, but most places staying a little bit above zero. Into Thursday, another cracking day. Not quite as warm, perhaps a bit more of a breeze blowing along the south coast. Duller day for the southeast of Scotland, northeast England, and under this cloudier zone, it'll feel quite chilly, I suspect, with temperatures only 9 or 10 Celsius. But elsewhere, should be a sunnier day for Northern Ireland, so feeling warmer here. And again, further south, temperatures widely into the mid-teens.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you for sticking with us. Now, a targeted vaccination programme has been announced at the University of Kent following a fatal meningitis outbreak. 2 young people have died, and the number of confirmed cases of invasive meningitis in the Canterbury area has increased to 15. Health Secretary Wes Streeting says it's an unprecedented outbreak and a rapidly developing situation.
Given the severity of the situation, I can confirm to the House that we will begin a targeted vaccination programme for students living in halls of residence at the University of Kent in Canterbury, which will begin in the coming days.
Well, earlier on GB News, we spoke to the owner of the nightclub at the centre of the outbreak, Louise Jones-Roberts, who said that health officials acted quickly and in an unusual manner.
And so they took the step that I thought was unusual to DM us. And actually what it meant was that we were able to start communicating to all of our followers. We went across all of our social media platforms to warn everybody of for the symptoms, what to look out for and what to do. And actually a member of our staff who has since been confirmed as is currently in hospital with meningitis read that, and that was what triggered him to take himself to A&E.
Fascinating. Well, with me now is London-based GP Dr. Kasim Usmani. Kasim, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Now, just help educate us on this. We know meningitis was always known as like the teenage disease problem virus. Universities where they're all kissing each other, and well, they used to kiss each other, they don't do that anymore. Now they just share vapes, right? Or they wear these stupid masks with spit on them and pass them around. So how unusual is this, and why has this started now, Kasim?
Hi, thank you for having me. I think, you know, it is unusual for the strains of the meningitis virus to present this way, but we've always really had the awareness that meningitis is a risk, particularly with the bugs that exist at the back of the throat. Usually about 1 in 4 people will have the bugs at the back of the throat. But in most instances with the vaccination program as it stands, it doesn't particularly tend to affect people of the ages between 10 to 14 plus, etc. So it's difficult to say. Health officials are trying to identify where this strain has come from, whether it's a virulent strain, whether it's a particular type of MenB. We do know that it's a meningococcal B strain that is circulating at the moment. But it's difficult to say at this stage where it's come from. We just know that it's causing a lot of current case studies, as we've already mentioned, 15 already and counting, with 2 deaths.
I'm a bit confused about the fact that if it's bacterial and most people carry it anyway, how does a vaccine help?
Yeah, so for the current strain for the MenB vaccine, meningococcal B, it's quite a complex infection to treat with the bacteria. So it's actually a cluster of many different strains, and that's what MenB actually is. So the vaccine is there to prevent and help reduce the kind of population number, if you like, but also the severity of it. So what we're talking about is kind of this herd immunity concept, really, where we are just seeing less numbers and less intensity of it. However, having said that, it's not entirely fully protective. We don't see a 100% reduction in it. And we only started launching the MenB vaccine back in 2015 here in the UK. Prior to that, people weren't receiving it, whether it be adolescents or those aged between 10 to 14 when you would normally get it. So there's a lot of university students who haven't been vaccinated against it, unfortunately. And the UK didn't elect to run with the vaccine program.
And my understanding is there used to be about 2,000 cases a year, and now it's down to about 350 because people were taking up that vaccine program. And this, Dr. Usmani, is an old-fashioned vaccine, is it not? So it's you introduce a little bit of the bacterial, if you like it, the viral load into the person, and they build up their own immunity. It's not like your mRNA dangerous vaccines, I would say, my opinion, that we have now. This is an old-fashioned, old-school vaccine. Am I right?
Yeah, it's an inoculated strain of the bacteria. So essentially, it's a weakened strain that's injected back into the circulation. So it allows the body to develop some form of immunity to the bug itself. However, of course, you know, it's specific types of the MenB strain that we're protecting against, not all types. So again, you know, it does help to reduce the overall number. But as you said, that number has come down, but not specifically for all types of MenB.
And we're looking at a queue here of people wearing face masks. Is that is not going to do anything in terms of catching meningitis, is it?
Well, one of the routes of transmission is kind of through sneezing, through coughing. You know, it can be through respiratory droplets as well. So there is some protection there, particularly when you're wearing the face mask. But my general advice would be obviously not to share kind of drinks with people, not to share vapes, because that seems to be one of the things that people are doing in order to fight, in order to help spread or encourage the spread of the infection as well. So just keeping, I guess, in some ways, yourself to yourself. Face masks can be helpful. We did see that particularly with previous infections like the COVID-19 pandemic. I think it's all about just risk awareness.
It did nothing.
Sure
It did nothing. The masks did absolutely nothing for COVID-19. There was nothing but negative effects of the mask. So that would be for a conversation for another day. My understanding is it's going to do nothing for meningitis. But I do think the best thing you should do, Cass, is to surely watch out for symptoms, don't ignore them, and get antibiotics. What are the symptoms?
Yes, so symptoms to look out for, really. anything that can mimic a flu, anything that can mimic a virus. Okay, so fever, vomiting, shaking, muscle aches and pains, you know, it's very easy to just cast them off and say, actually, I'll be fine, I'm going to go and lie in bed and I'll be all right. But actually then things can progress very rapidly, as we've seen with this infection. So if you were to develop any neck stiffness or a headache with a rash, that's what we call non-blanching, so not changing when you press on it with a clear glass so it doesn't disappear. If you're noticing that, that's an absolutely urgent sign that you need to get checked immediately. It can present differently in children and babies, so irritability, difficulty feeding, bulging of the fontanelle, so the soft spot on the top of the forehead. That's how it can present in babies. So yes, very common symptoms that you might get with the flu, but then again, need to be looked at very carefully.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, London-based GP Dr. Kasim Usmani there. Don't wear face masks, but do take antibiotics if you find that you are getting those symptoms. Don't ignore it if you're a teenager and you've been snogging your boyfriend in a nightclub at university. Go and see your doctor. Right, should we have a look at some of the stories on the front page of tomorrow's newspapers? Times. They are leading with that story about the fatal meningitis outbreak, declared a national incident, and a fantastic picture on the front page of the Times of the Princess of Wales there smiling with some military personnel on St Patrick's Day. She's just, I just think she's brilliant. I just can't stop looking at pictures of her. Now also on the front page of The Sun, I was blinded by the killer bug. This is again a story of meningitis. Annabelle, 21, loses sight for 2 days, it says there, and still can't walk. It is strange, this, because it used to be an illness. What am I calling it? It's not a disease. Is it a disease? Is it disease, meningitis? That's not the right phrase, is it? Is it a disease, Eric?
I would say illness.
Illness, yeah. Illness. It was an illness that people used to talk about a lot. I remember going when I was at university, and my mum being, oh, we've got to be careful if you ever get a rash and it doesn't go away if you hold a glass against it. But it's very much slipped off the news agenda, and it slipped off the health agenda. So I'm glad to see it's back on there. I'm glad to see we've got awareness being raised.
Google says it is not a virus itself, but it's commonly caused by viral infections.
Yes, and then generally, but that it is. There's two types, isn't there? And it's a bacterial type of meningitis and a viral type of meningitis. And I think this strain is the bacterial, which is why they're being advised to go and get antibiotics. The Telegraph are running with my story. Trump, BBC is against me winning the war. That came from the press conference this morning, in which I asked the president how his legal action against the BBC was going after that Panorama documentary was spliced together to depict his words as something other than what they were, and he spread it out to basically expanded it to say that he looked at the BBC coverage of the war and he said they're not on side with that either. And The Independent, Trump's tantrum. We don't need NATO help against Iran. The president lashes out after his demands for military assistance in the Strait of Hormuz are rejected, and his counterterrorism chief quits in protest. And The iPaper. Your war on Iran is based on a lie, says Trump's security chief in open letter to America. This is what we've been discussing a little bit this evening. That's Joe Kent. He was one of the high-ranking counterterrorism officials here in Washington, D.C. And that letter is very much going to play into the narrative that this isn't a war for Israel, by Israel, as opposed to for America. The Daily Mirror, Britain hit by Trumpflation. Well, the White House won't like that headline. Trumpflation is the kind of word that will capture the imagination, isn't it, Eric, if that starts going around the world.
That's not even the BBC.
It's a very left-wing newspaper, though. They hate President Trump. It's your lot. The Daily Express, people are dying in hospital corridors without pain relief. This is a damning story about the NHS. Hospice providers and MPs are warning a funding emergency for end-of-life care. Judge a society by how they look after their children and their old people, hey. Metro. Reeves bets on quantum leap, they say. Chancellor's £2.5 billion technology boast. She says she's going to boost the economy by investing £2.5 billion in technology. 2.5 billion sounds like literally like, yeah, I know. When you're in this country,
it's like throwing a coin in the ocean.
It sounds pathetic, doesn't it? 2.5 billion. Whereas in America, you're like,
is that a week?
No, that's in total. Right, The Guardian, they are leading with Iran nuclear deal.
had been within reach before the conflict. I've also heard these rumours here in Washington, D.C. that the negotiators were surprised, in inverted commas, that action was taken on that Sunday morning because they did believe that they had a peace deal ready to go from November and a deal on how much nuclear capability Iran was allowed to develop and under what conditions. So, should we talk about one of those stories? What should we talk about?
If only there had been an Iran deal that countries negotiated to control the amount of nuclear development. If only there had been a deal like that.
Sounds like
you're being
deja vu,
sarcastic,
doesn't it?
Mark.
No, I mean, if only we had a deal that would negotiate between the U.S., the Western powers, and Iran to control the amount of uranium and nuclear material that they could produce.
Okay, Eric, just give us a bit of backstory as to what Mark is getting at there in his very impartial mainstream media journalist way.
I can't get inside Mark's head, but I do.
We know what he's getting at, Eric. Go for it. Come on.
I do vaguely
mention
remember
Obama.
A
JCPOA?
Some letters? Yes. Okay, JCPOA, that's right. And it actually involved the IAEA that would actually go into Iran and inspect their nuclear capabilities, inspect their uranium enrichment. And I do remember even Donald Trump's own national security advisor, H.R. McMaster, during his first term, right when Donald Trump actually pulled out, unilaterally, mind you, out of the agreement, saying that Iran, in fact, was in compliance. And yet here we are now engaged in another war that the president himself said that the United States would certainly never do under his watch. And once again, here we are. And the United States is all alone in this war, and gas prices are rising astronomically, and the American people are deeply unnerved about what is happening.
So, Mark, your point being that there was a deal, an agreement to monitor Iran's nuclear capability. President Trump in his first term came in and said, are you nuts? They shouldn't be anywhere near a nuclear bomb. There's only so much control you can exert onto this sort of regime. You think that still would have been the preferable option, do you?
I think there's been a lot of reporting that the JCPOA, the agreement that was constructed, was flawed in many ways.
What does that stand for, JCPOA? I can't bear an acronym. Honestly, the world's getting we're just drowning in acronyms.
All right, I'm going to get my phone here.
JCPOA. Who's got ChatGPT? Come on, between us, how quickly can we look this up? I'll start counting.
Joint Comprehensive Plan of... No music, I just got it.
Well done.
Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. So this was the 2015 agreement between Iran and some of the Western countries, plus China, etc. And there was a lot of reporting at the time that it was not ideal, that there were a lot of flaws in it. But there's no doubt that it constrained Iran's ability, if it was complying, if the international...
which the international community said, in fact, it was at the time that the president pulled out of the agreement.
Right.
Paul, have I just reached peak skepticism? Because I don't think when you're dealing with a regime like Iran and such extreme religious fanatics, you can let them anywhere near a nuclear bomb and say, oh, it's all right, we're keeping an eye on them. I don't share that sort of naivety. Or perhaps it's just optimism, Paul.
Well, I'm with you on this, Bev. The idea that a regime like Iran were being fully cooperative, for me, is for the birds. And I think what President Trump did was make an economical, business-type decision about that pact. And that was that it was throwing good money after bad. And if it came out and just said, oh, no, they're absolutely compliant, I would immediately look at that and go, are we sure? What, Iran? Completely compliant? Nothing to see here? I can't believe that for a moment. And look, the harsh reality of this whole thing, as war often tells us, is that this sort of diplomacy only goes so far. As much as we'd love it to, OK? And at the end of World War II, countries like ours and yours and ours, because I consider the US and the UK very much brothers and sisters in this, we didn't want to see the type of warfare that we saw during World War II ever again. And we're trying to avoid that at all costs. But ultimately, some regimes, religious zealots and fanatics, will supersede any diplomacy. And we need to squash it, and we need to squash it now.
Yeah, there was, go on, I was just going to say, Eric, I don't know whether you saw online, but there was a really powerful speech, we might play it tomorrow night on The Late Show, that Marco Rubio did just a few years ago, where he stood up and said, and I don't know exactly when it was, you guys might know better than I do, but he stood up and it was very portentous, let's say, of events that have happened now. And when he said, you cannot sit back and let Iran develop these capabilities, they are going to be the biggest threat to us in the world in a few years' time. Go on, Eric, I interrupted you.
We have to remember, when that deal was actually constructed with Iran, the president of Iran at that time, Rouhani, was actually he was the only member of the theocracy that actually wanted that agreement. We have to remember, the supreme leader at the time did not support that. They thought that the United States simply could not be trusted, that they were not an honest broker. And he actually placed all of his political capital on the table to actually get this agreement with the P5+1 on this deal. And so there was a lot of skepticism. But again, it was the United States that actually proved to be the dishonest broker in all of this, because when President Trump came in, he was the one who unilaterally tore up this agreement, even again, as the rest of the world recognized that that Iran was in compliance. Now, President Trump was right. This deal did not go far. We know that even after Iran's nuclear program was mothballed, they did begin construction and to build up their missile capabilities, their ballistic missile program. But President Obama made it clear this agreement was simply the floor. It was a beginning place to start and hopefully build upon it. And that was certainly something Donald Trump certainly could have done. He could have actually began negotiations on the missile program, as opposed to simply tearing it up and starting over from scratch. And now we're not only not at square one, we're at zero or negative square one.
Which would make you feel safer, though, Eric?
What would have made me feel safer?
Which of those options, in the fullness of time, is going to make you as an American feel safer?
If we had kept the agreement that was in place and the president began from there to negotiate over Iran's ballistic missile program.
But they want
one.
But they want one. There's no negotiating. They want one. They think they deserve one. They think they should have one. And they think they'd like to wipe out all the Christian countries. Which makes you feel safer? Letting them do that, or nuking them, well, almost nuking them, bombing the living daylights out of them now so they can't do it?
Well, I don't agree with that. And even Joe Ken himself says that Iran was not a threat to the United States.
But point being, he was saying it's not a threat to the United States because of the war from June of last year, for the battering they gave them in June. Surely, if they hadn't done that and they weren't doing this now, then you wouldn't be sleeping safely in your bed at night.
I'm not so sure I agree with that. I think we had a deal, and I think that President Trump's done has made it harder for us, not easier.
All right. Right, we're just going to have a quick, I think we're going to have a look at the weather, are we? And then we'll be back. Lucky you got another hour.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A cracker of a spring day for most of England and Wales. Lots of sunshine, quite warm by this afternoon. Some parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland seeing some sunshine, but there is this cloudier zone over Northern Ireland, southern Scotland in particular. A little bit of light rain and drizzle possible in places here through the morning, but tending to peter out. So the odd shower into the Western Isles, but much of northern Scotland dry, and some sunny spells certainly for Aberdeenshire. Lots of sunshine further south, light winds, temperatures jumping up. 18, 19, we could easily see the first 20 of the year in parts of West Wales. Further north, still that cloudier zone affecting parts of Northern Ireland and southern Scotland, and still the odd shower just moving up towards Orkney, Caithness and Sutherland. But as I said, Aberdeenshire generally staying dry. The cloud thick enough for a little bit of light rain and drizzle, particularly on the southwestern parts of Scotland. But the rain and drizzle should be easing from Northern Ireland, staying quite cloudy here into this evening, but generally clear skies for England and Wales, with a bit more of a breeze coming in from the east. It will be a little cooler on these eastern coasts through the day today, and that will continue to strengthen a little bit over the next couple of days. The rain may pep up a little bit overnight across parts of central and eastern Scotland, but it should stay fairly light. Clearer skies to the north and plenty of clear skies to the south. That will allow some mist and fog patches to form, and It will allow it to turn quite chilly tonight. Some pockets of frost just about possible in some rural spots, but most places staying a little bit above zero. Into Thursday, another cracking day. Not quite as warm, perhaps a bit more of a breeze blowing along the south coast. Duller day for the southeast of Scotland, northeast England, and under this cloudier zone, it'll feel quite chilly, I suspect, with temperatures only 9 or 10 Celsius. But elsewhere, should be a sunnier day for Northern Ireland, so feeling warmer here. And again, further south, temperatures widely into the mid-teens.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From court mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again to start your day just right.
GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live with me, Bev Turner. So I got back from the Oscars at 11 o'clock last night. We haven't talked about that, of course. Then I was at the White House at 9 o'clock this morning. But lucky you, you've got a whole nother hour of me now. If I collapse before the end of this hour, will somebody please send food? So Donald Trump did say earlier today that America, told America that the end of the Iran war was close. Have a listen.
If we left right now, it would take 10 years for them to rebuild. But we're not ready to leave yet. But we'll be leaving in the near future. We'll be leaving in pretty much the very near future. But right now, they've been decimated from every standpoint.
He also said that armed forces needed to make the damage there more permanent. Have a listen to a flavour of what he had to say.
We have to put out this cancer. It's a cancer. We had to take that operation, and we did, and it was very successful. And it continues, frankly, as somebody said, they could leave today and it would take 10 years to rebuild the damage that's been done. But I think we have to make it a little bit more permanent because no other president has to go through this, and we don't ever want to have that problem again, not with lunatics. We can't have lunatics controlling nuclear weaponry. So
that was at a reception, a St. Patrick's Day reception in the White House this afternoon. Now, Ali Larijani, Iran's security chief and de facto leader since Ali Khamenei's death, has been killed. A post on his social media account has confirmed this. And the Daily Telegraph is tonight reporting that the Royal Navy could be enlisted to enforce a ceasefire in the Straits of Hormuz after Iran and the US strike a peace deal. Britain is in talks to send ships under plans for an escort system suggested by Emmanuel Macron, the French president. Also tonight, Israeli officials have said that Iranian protesters will get slaughtered if they take to the streets against their government. An Israeli diplomatic cable sent to the American embassy in Jerusalem on Friday acknowledged the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps has the upper hand over any demonstrations, which is extremely depressing. With me now is author and Iran policy analyst Dr. Ramesh Separad to go through some of that. Ramesh, good to see you. Thank you so much for joining me. This Israeli diplomatic cable saying that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard has the upper hand over any demonstrations. That's fairly chilling, but I guess fairly obvious in that the people remain extremely vulnerable to those still in charge.
Well, you have to remember, right now, with Khamenei out of the picture, it is in fact the IRGC that's running the show. IRGC, that is designated terrorist organization by US and EU. And now with the elimination of Larijani, we have to come back to the core issue, which is the Iranian people have already passed their verdict on this regime. They have rejected this regime on multiple occasions at a very great cost in the streets. So, in fact, even if you look at today's war is actually price of years of an appeasement policy, appeasing a system that doesn't reform, appeasing a system that only escalates with repression, with terrorism. So again, coming back to the issue of IRGC being in charge, yes, IRGC is the only organ that's left of a decapitated regime. But, and you know, even though Larijani is out of the picture, it's not about who falls within the regime. It's about the fact that Iranian people are focused and are organized and are really fighting to end this regime of terror, to end this regime of IRGC. And I think that is the focus that we have to really bring to the center. And, you know, the real question is whether the world recognizes that the Iranian people's demand for change and support their demand for a democratic alternative, instead of repeating the same failed policies that we've had in the past. So, you know, decapitation of a regime within the regime doesn't necessarily bring democracy. Yes, it does weaken the regime, but it doesn't replace it. And I think to really counter the argument that the IRGC has the control of the streets, we also have to remember Iran's internal and domestic resistance movement. There is a very vast and very wide resistance unit network across all 31 provinces. And we are seeing more and more of their activities coming through the social media and the clips that they have. And there's also a very organized Liberation Army, the National Liberation Army, which is a strategy that, in fact, Iran's opposition came to a long time ago. But now everyone is talking about, yes, we cannot change this regime. Yes, there's going to be boots on the ground, but they only look at it from a lens of a foreign war and foreign boots. Where we need to flip and pivot is to make this an Iranian war, an Iranian boots on the ground, the National Liberation Army of Iran that's going to fight the IRGC and take back the control of the streets.
Am I right in saying, Ramesh, that it's the Persian New Year this weekend? And if so, what does that mean for the country? How would it normally be celebrated and how will it be different this year?
You know, the ancient Nowruz, which is celebrated beyond Iran, and it's celebrated across all Iranian nationalities, Kurds, Baluchis, Persians, Turks, all across Iran. Yes, that celebration is on Friday. And this is the celebration that the Iranian regime for years have tried to either minimize or even push it aside, but it was this fight, it was this everyday form of resistance to push back on a culture that the regime was imposing on the Iranian people. So tonight actually is the celebration of fire, which is the Charshanbe Suri, and based on all the information that I have received, people are taking to the streets and they're using every single opportunity to push back on the regime. And I think with this new Nowruz, Iranian New Year's, we're going to see a fresh Iran. We're going to see a fresh spring, a celebration of spring coming with freedom, democracy, and a non-nuclear secular republic Iran. So I am so looking forward to seeing what the few days ahead of us is going to bring us from the message that we're going to get from the people inside the country. You know, at the end of the day, we have to remember it is the Iranian people that have paid the heaviest price under this regime. It is the Iranian people that really have pushed the world to come to this realization that this regime has to end, and they've paid heavy with their own lives. And so we need to celebrate that resistance. We need to celebrate their call for a movement, and a movement that has a lot of credibility. Mariam Rajavi just spoke about the path ahead, the provisional government that's ready to step in and manage the transition to a popular sovereignty within 6 months of this regime's fall. This is the exit strategy. This is the exit ramp that we have to focus on, and we have to bring to the debates that we're having.
So when you hear lots of international leaders refuse to back up President Trump in the way that he might want, not getting involved, being reticent, saying they're not going to necessarily help keep the Straits of Hormuz open at the moment. They're all basically just leaving him and looking a little isolated. How do you feel about that as an Iranian?
You know, my view is simple. Whether it is a few countries or the international community, the fundamental reality is that the source of the crisis is in Tehran, is the IRGC, that is now trying to really create this chaos in the region. And I think we need to highlight the need for strategic clarity. You know, the end state must be very clear. And for the international community, we have to understand that a democratic Iran is only possible when it's chosen by the people of Iran. We should not lose sight of the bigger picture, that, you know, the crisis that we're dealing with, and that debate really didn't start in Washington. That debate started in the streets of Iran. That debate is still ongoing among the Iranian that are political prisoners today, as they're fighting and pushing back on this regime. That's where we need to focus the international community, to see what steps can we take to support the people of Iran as they push to change this regime. And you also have to remember, yes.
Go on, go on, last point.
I was just going to say, you know, we have tried every which way with this regime. We've talked about reform, which really brought nothing but terror and repression. We've talked about we are in war that is really hasn't brought this regime to an end. And we have dealt with the IRGC that has been, it's very talented and very sophisticated in exporting instability, terrorism, and chaos in the region. For us to stand up against that should include a solution that places the Iranian people's demand to change this regime to a non-nuclear secular republic at its center. That's the policy that the international community get behind.
Yeah. Okay, superbly put. Thank you so much. Author and Iran policy analyst, Dr. Ramesh Separad, there, a non-nuclear secular authority. She sums it up just brilliantly, doesn't she, Eric?
She does, and I think where she is where I think President Trump was when this war began, that he actually saw the United States as helping to liberate the Iranian people. But I think right now, like so many wars that we've seen in the past, oftentimes I think the mission becomes cloudy and oftentimes gets lost, because right now many Americans don't really know what the mission is, why we're there, what the exit strategy is, who we're helping. And the president has changed up in terms of what the overall goal and plan is, and I think that's why it's making it so much more difficult for this president to actually get buy-in from the American people, and more importantly from his allies.
Yeah, because in fact it was Jamie at home. Thank you, Jamie, for telling me about the Persian New Year this weekend. I mean, when you hear that, Mark, when you hear about their festival, were you familiar with Nowruz? Oh, you were? Oh, I'm just the only idiot here. Were you familiar with it? No, good. I bet Paul Cox wasn't. Paul, were you familiar with Nowruz as a Middle Eastern New Year?
No, I absolutely was not, Bev.
Yeah, good. Me neither. But actually, I was just going to say, but it just sounds so lovely and so beautiful and so human, and it celebrates renewal, harmony with nature and community cohesion. The irony, Mark, those issues are polar opposite of what is happening in that region right now.
I've been to 96 countries so far. I am dying to go to Iran. They have such a beautiful culture, so much history, so vibrant. Happy New Year. And I would love to go to Iran someday and experience that culture firsthand. They've got a rich history. And I would love the day when I can go to that country, because the U.S. and Iran and the Western world and everybody is getting along in harmony. And I hope that day is soon to come.
Yeah. Paul, do you know what I mean? The point I'm trying to make here clumsily in this tired third hour, when things go a little bit weird sometimes. I saw you reduce Ben Leo to uncontrollable giggles the other night, Ben, during this, Paul, during this third hour. But the profound contrast between, you know, the Persian people who want to celebrate with 13 days of festivities, tracing something back to the 6th century originally, celebrating light over darkness and order over chaos. I mean, you couldn't write it. And hopefully these people will get to live this festival this time next year. And hearing this and listening to our contributor there, I'd like to see President Trump actually talk a little bit more about the needs of the Iranian people, I think, when you hear how beautifully articulated their desperation is, Paul.
Yeah, what a tremendously objective to have for the Iranian people and themselves. Look, the regime is only... I was born in 79. The regime came into power in 79. So I'd like to think that 79 was not that long ago, and it's only been 46, 47 years. Before that, as we've seen a million times on social media and mainstream media alike, images of Iran pre the regime showed Iran to be the progressive, interesting, vibrant place that you would want to visit. And I hope Mark gets to visit, by the way. I hope that works out very well for him. But yeah, look, I think we need to highlight these things. I think it's interesting to see the contrast between the regime and the Persian values and the Persian people, and we must retain that. I think Eric's right, that when Donald Trump entered this war, what he saw was this being a rebuttal to what happened just a few weeks previously, when anywhere between 3,000 and 40,000 protesters were slaughtered because they opposed the regime. If we can get away from that, or as far away from that as possible, then Iran will be a much better place for it.
Absolutely. Let's talk now to Mally Smith, friend of the show, Democrat strategist. Malbert, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Just on this issue of this Nowruz, Persian New Year, Mally, it embodies, as I said, these themes of renewal, harmony with nature, community cohesion. It's apparently a shared cultural bridge across national, ethnic and religious boundaries, reflecting enduring values of peace and rejuvenation. What a contrast, Mally, this weekend compared to the images we're seeing on the screens now. But is this something that President Trump and Israel have to do to secure that sort of celebration for the Iranian people in the future?
Well, I certainly hope that the Iranians in the future are able to fully participate in this New Year celebration, and that they're living under a democracy where they get to choose their own leaders and they have free expression, and they're essentially able to have the rights and freedoms that we do living in the United States and the UK. But unfortunately, one of the reasons I've been skeptical of this intervention from the start is growing up as I have, when you've had the Iraq War, the Afghanistan War, Syria, Libya, I think you have two issues here. Either first, we do a sustained military bombing campaign, but we don't dislodge the regime, so we trade in one Ayatollah for a younger one. And then even if we kill the younger one, but we don't send in troops, I'm sure they'll find a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth Ayatollah. They'll just keep rolling them out there. And then the other worry I have is if we did fully get rid of the regime, would we have stability after it? And unfortunately, there are no good answers there. And I don't see how the United States does any of this without boots on the ground. And I think that's a tough red line for the Trump administration to cross. And even if we did it, it still opens up a lot of questions, Bev.
I don't know whether you saw any of the press conference this morning, Mali, in the Oval Office with President Trump there and the Taoiseach.
Well, Bev, I was going to say I did see some of it, and I don't agree with Trump on much. But he was right that you are a fantastic journalist. I especially feel that after having spent the last 2 weeks with Ben Leo. So I just wanted to give you that shout out.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I think I just cut out for a minute, but I think you said that you agreed with President Trump that I was a fantastic journalist, especially having spent a few weeks with Ben Leo. But I know you had your tongue in your cheek when you said that. And he's not here to defend himself, but he will be back at the weekend. We know you do. We know you do. But I was going to say that press conference this morning, Trump just kept doubling down and doubling down on, I'm right, we're winning, I don't need anybody else's help, we've got this. It was like, hold my beer, I'm in control of this. Were you reassured by that as an American?
Well, the problem I have is I feel like we're really leaning into tactical successes, which we've had tactical military successes in that we've taken out much of their navy. We killed the Ayatollah and Iranian leadership. But the issue is on the two strategic objectives of getting rid of the nuclear program and or getting rid of the regime and having regime change, I think we're far from that. And then the other issue we have is with the Strait of Hormuz. It's incredibly difficult to see how we secure the strait because it only takes one Iranian in a speedboat to shoot a rocket at a slow-moving ship, and then we have an oil spill in the strait, and a lot of companies don't want to deal with that risk. So yes, they're tactical military successes, but does that get us to our overall strategic goal? No. I did think it's funny that he kind of employed what my mom tells me, which is if you think a guy is about to break up with you, you break up with them first, which is he thought NATO was going to say no to his request. So he was like, nope, NATO, we don't need you. So my mom would be proud of him if he was treating this like a dating scene.
I did have a bit of a snigger to myself when I saw his Truth Social post, and he was like, I'd never needed them anyway. I never needed you anyway. I never loved you anyway. It was always, you know, never about you. Shall we have a quick look at a clip from the press conference this morning? Let's have a quick look at what President Trump was saying. Just to tell people, if they don't know, it's Michael Martin, who's sat next to them, who is the Taoiseach of Ireland, and they get on very well. Let's have a quick look.
Well, I'm disappointed in NATO that we spend trillions of dollars on NATO. Think of it, trillions over the years, many trillions of dollars. It's one of the reasons we have deficits and we help other countries. And when they don't help us, I mean, it's certainly something that we should think about. I have nothing currently in mind, but I will say that I'm not exactly thrilled when we help them with Ukraine.
Who can I go to on that, Mark? Let me get your response to what he was saying there. The other thing that really struck me, actually, is the fact that if you're in a press conference with President Trump and you're the other national leader sat there, I don't think you're going to get a word in edgeways. He barely got to speak on St. Patrick's Day.
He is sitting where many world leaders before him have sat. One thing I want to go back to, which you brought this up in the last hour, and he's sort of obliquely referring to it. Ted Cruz, senator from Texas, he's a lawyer, and he said just a few hours ago on television, quote, "We are not going to see a scenario where we see hundreds of thousands of American troops on the ground for an extended period of time." Two qualifications in that sentence. One, hundreds of thousands, and number two, extended period of time. So while Donald Trump says he doesn't know exactly how he's going to later react to what has happened with the NATO allies, he doesn't have anything in mind right now, etc. I do think this is interesting from the senator from Texas, perhaps floating some sort of trial balloon and then putting conditions on it.
Eric, can you see a scenario where you just have to put boots on the ground?
I think given the fact where we are right now, if the president is going to achieve any of his objectives in terms of regime change, liberating the Iranian people, that was going to have to be part of this operation is boots on the ground. He will never get to where he wants or he hopes to without those boots on the ground. And while the president is right in that the United States has had an enormous amount of military successes, for many people, the United States still seems to be losing the war based on the fact that Iran is still here, even with all of the setbacks that Iran has suffered, and there have been many. The fact that they control an area that is able to shape the global economy still makes clear that Iran is punching way above its weight, very similar to what we have seen from Ukraine with Russia. And because of that, the United States, which is said to have the largest, most powerful military in the world, the fact that Iran is still here and is able to have such influence makes clear that this is a Pyrrhic victory for the president.
I do wonder what success looks like, Paul. I know it's very difficult in times of conflict for any leader to genuinely say this is what success, unless you are literally trying to seize land, unless you're doing a kind of Putin in Ukraine and you can put your line on the map and go, right, we've got it, we're done. This is so nebulous. It's very difficult for President Trump, I suppose, at this point to say what success looks like. And I think maybe his vision of success might be slightly different to what Netanyahu's vision of success might be, Paul.
Look, I think you can break success down into several milestones. I don't think it has to be one great big milestone. And I think the first milestone, by the way, is to protect the Strait of Hormuz. Now, this is where I really do not understand why NATO allies have not joined in any help whatsoever. The idea that Macron and Starmer have come together and said, should there be a peace deal, we'll help you out then. Well, that's no good whatsoever. How do you think you're going to get to a peace deal without showing strength in order to enable that peace? We have to, by the way, whether we like it or not, protect that Strait of Hormuz. And that protects, by the way, the people, the constituents of France, of Great Britain, of Germany, of all the other NATO nations, Lithuania, anyone you can think of that's in NATO will be protected if they protect the Strait of Hormuz. Now, there are much wider geopolitical questions about whether we should be so dependent on the oil and gas that comes through that strait, but I really cannot understand why they cannot put differences to one side, make this a lot less political, and say, yes, we're going to help with that, Bev.
And Bev,
I wonder if they. Sorry, just go on, Mally.
Well, I was just going to jump off what Paul was saying there, in that the Strait of Hormuz is also somewhat of a clock on all of this operation, because if we don't secure it and it continues to be a logjam economically for oil and gas exports, we're going to not be able to continue the war because the economic pain is going to go up. Trump has been able to say different things to keep the oil and gas markets from completely freaking out. But when he says these things, he's hinting that the war is going to be short. But every day that the war goes on and we haven't secured the Strait of Hormuz, those promises aren't as strong. And it's not just oil and gas. Two other critical things come out of the Strait, which is first fertilizer, and we know that could increase crop prices for everyone. And then the second, helium, which is not only important for kids' party balloons, but it's also important for making chips. I don't know why helium is important for making semiconductor chips. I am not that smart, but I know it's important, and it could raise the cost on everything from iPhones to cars.
Mali, never say that you don't teach me something. That was remarkable. I think we've just come up with a solution. If everyone in the area just sucks a lot of helium balloons, they'll all be laughing too much to fight with each other, maybe. That might be the solution there. But you know what I wonder is going on at the Straits of Hormuz is, and I hate to say this, but my gut instinct is going off overtime on this. One of these leaders wants to claim credit for it. One of them, be it Starmer or Macron or who else is there? Australia, Albanese, Canada. One of them is going to want to be the guy that's on the phone ringing round and going, right, we've got to get together. We are going to fix the Straits of Hormuz, because they can't bear, Eric, the idea that it might be Trump who will do that. They have to come to his aim, his saviour. The aim is to make him look a little bit weaker, so one of them will come and said, well, we've sorted this. It's all right, Don. We've got this. What do you reckon, Eric?
No, I don't think anyone's coming to Donald Trump's savior. I think they're going to let this guy drown. But I do believe as long as Iran continues to control the Strait, it again shows their outsized influence. And the fact that we actually heard that not only are they allowing certain ships to actually get through the Strait, but also has stated that they are willing to actually trade oil in Chinese currency, makes clear that they are, again, punching way above their weight, making clear that even as the United States continues to destroy key installations and Israel is continuing to assassinate key people, Iran still controls the upper hand, because they have now made this a war about economics. And it shows that clearly they are the ones who are driving this, not the United States. And again, that is what is making Donald Trump look weak, because he's still looking for that exit and he hasn't been able to find it. And as long as Iran makes clear that they are still heavily reliant and willing to engage with China, again, what this shows here is that Iran still has cards to play, more so than what President Trump has, even though he has all of the guns.
What do you think of my theory, Paul? Because I think we saw it in Ukraine. Trump was there wanting to sort out Ukraine. Starmer even stood next to him at the lectern at various events and has basically said, oh, no, we're going to do something different, and then does something different. And then they greet Zelensky at number 10 the next day and give him a hug. Like, they're trying to claim some sort of credit on the global stage. I can't bear it, but I think I'm right.
I think you are too. I was nodding along vigorously as you were talking. Look, here's a theory for you. Every single one of those nations within NATO is led by a left-wing, centre or left-wing government. They do not want to see Trump get a victory against Iran, a wholesale victory, okay? This is my personal theory, that they are holding off because they do not want to see him win, even if it means helping their own citizens. I believe this, like vehemently believe this. I genuinely think that they would much rather see Donald Trump struggle politically and physically than see him win, even if it was in their best interests, or not in their best interest politically, but the best interest of their civilians, Bev.
And I think the rest of our panel tonight might find it hard to empathise with that, but we are doing it because we are Brits, and we feel at the moment that our government is against us and they would do anything to not help their people. Mali, can you imagine, Mali, you've sat on this desk now every week for, what have we been here, 8 months or so, Mali? Can you see why, as Brits, we've now got into the mindset where we think, actually, Keir Starmer would cut his nose off to spite his face, to spite the faces of his people, in fact, and not help us in the Straits of Hormuz, not help us, even if it means our gas prices and our oil prices staying low and our stuff being affordable, because he can't bear to see Trump get all the success.
That, and I also think, too, Keir Starmer just has trouble making decisions, given from all the waffling he had right when this war started, and he couldn't really it was hard to discern what he thought about it. He was against it, but the UK was kind of helping, but they kind of weren't. So part of it, I think, Bev, is the simple fact that given that he's politically weakened, he's having trouble making strong decisions and just sticking with them.
Isn't it funny, Mark? Because if Trump played that correctly, it could actually garner a bit of sympathy to him from a comms point of view. If he showed that he wanted this help, but nobody is coming to help him because they're trying to claim credit, that might land quite well, mightn't it?
Well, just factually speaking, Donald Trump has played the victim card in some points in the past and said, look, I asked for help, nobody came, I've got to do it myself, right? We're going forward on my own. But one thing I wanted to hit on, which was what Eric mentioned, I want to put a very fine point on this because I know there are journalists looking at whether this will develop. Eric mentioned that Iran considering to trade in Chinese currency for the oil. What they're actually looking to do, just as Eric mentioned, is we will give you safe passage if you give us Chinese currency and do not pay for the oil in US dollars. So currently, we have the strait shut down to all but Iranian tankers, right? They are allowing their tankers to go. They are still selling oil. Can you imagine what would happen if they started now selling to other countries, the dominoes that would fall if other countries not aligned with the U.S. were to take them up on that deal and more oil started transiting the strait, but traded in Chinese currency and the U.S. and the Western countries were locked out? That would be very curious to see whether that's going to develop. Interesting.
And Jamie at home, good evening, good morning, Jamie, has said helium apparently is needed for lasers. Who knew? Been learning quite a lot tonight, haven't we? Did you know that? Do you know what laser stands for, Eric?
No, but I do know the United States actually...
Hang on. I was having a little bit of a there. Don't you interrupt me when I'm about to impress everyone with my...
I would love to know what laser stands for, please tell me.
Do you know, Paul Cox?
No, I don't. I know it's an acronym, and I used to work with lasers. I've always known it's an acronym, and at one point in my previous career, when I had a real job, I would have known. But no, Bev, please do tell us.
Mally, I have to ask you, I bet Mally's looked it up on ChatGPT in the time that I've said this, because I can tell you what laser stands for. Go on, Mally.
I haven't. I'm just going to take the victory that I knew helium was involved in making chips, so that's all I got.
I take your victory and I raise you a laser. It stands for, gentlemen, light amplification by the stimulated emission of radiation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very good. When is your appearance on Jeopardy?
I'd love to. I've always wanted to go on Countdown, actually.
I was on The Price is Right.
Were you?
I won the Showcase Showdown.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Was it a celebrity special?
In college. Maybe one day I'll bring the clip.
Oh, before you were famous?
But it was my network television debut on The Price is Right.
Wow, come on down. Right, shall we just talk about what happened today? I think we're saying goodbye to you now, are we, Mally? Is he staying with us, or has he got to go? You're very welcome to stay, Mally. It's after hours now. You're very welcome.
Whatever you guys want.
Anything goes. We're very happy to keep you. If you stay there, we'll use you. Believe me, we scraped the bottom of the barrel for this final hour. A reminder of my appearance at the White House today. We just want to show you a little bit. Let me show you a bit of what was going on behind the scenes, because I was very fortunate to be there, thanks to GBNews today. So it was a very early start. It was 9 o'clock in the morning. So here we are. So we went in the motorcade. So we had the Oval Office conference with the Taoiseach there from Ireland and the President taking questions from the assembled press. There's a lot of Irish journalists there today. And then we go in the motorcade like this. And this is genuinely, this is the coolest bit of being with the President, because you don't stop at a red light. It's obvious, obviously. But you get in the car, and then this was the event. This is in the Capitol building. So they had a Friends of Ireland lunch there. You can see the Speaker Johnson in the corner. He said today about the fact that he has an Italian heritage. That President Trump very much took the mickey out of him for that. Just said, I didn't see you in those terms at all. Didn't think you were that sort of cool and Mediterranean. And lots of officials in the room, lots of senators there today. And I have to say, what struck me again and again, whenever I'm with the President, he can talk. He spent all day talking to people. And I know sometimes he's accused, so this is in the Capitol building, you've seen the big rotunda in the centre there. What is it?
Statuary Hall.
Statuary Hall, thank you, Mark. If I'm getting any of this wrong, Mark, please, as an expert, fill me in. I'm impossible to offend. So all the press was assembled and we watched the luncheon, and then we get taken back in the motorcade again back to the White House for the presentation of the Shamrock in the White House in the afternoon. But this genuinely is the coolest bit when you're travelling in the cars with them. And the motorcade is enormous. I don't know how many cars there are in there. Do you know, Mark?
It's more than 24.
Yeah, it's more, you're right. It's about probably 25 cars, I would say, something like that, with the president in there. And of course, when you're living in DC, this becomes very normal. People on the streets are used to it, aren't they? They're used to the roads being closed down like this. And look at the speed. We're really going some here. There's a few licks here going past the Capitol building there.
Yeah, because in D.C., not only are there motorcades for the president, the vice president, the secretary of defense, all that, but also for all the foreign ambassadors that are in town. So all the time you're hearing motorcades scream by, and especially the axis between the White House and the Capitol, because sometimes the vice president has to go and cast a vote.
So this is the back of the White House, back or the front of the White House? That's the back of the White House. And as you can see, as you look down there to the Washington Monument, the fountain was green today. They dyed the fountains green at the White House, and here we are now just going through the back gates into the garden at the White House. You'll see a really good shot of the White House fountain. And in fact, the president made a bit of a joke at lunch. He said it had been dyed green. Well, in fact, it was Speaker Johnson. He said it's been dyed green, but I don't think Bobby Kennedy would be very happy about the fact that they'd used coloured dyes in that, because of course he's taken them out of all the food. That got a little ripple of laughter across the room. But yeah, it's a very slick operation, as you would imagine. And the president talked all day. So this was the evening event. Oh, sorry, the afternoon event. It felt like the evening by then. This was the afternoon event, finished about 5 o'clock or so. Packed with Irish people in that room. I have never been in a room with so many people talking at one time and talking so loudly. The Irish love a chat, Eric. It was very, very noisy, and the Taoiseach and the president got on the stage and spoke to the crowd. It was genuinely celebratory, celebrating the relationship between these two countries. Fascinating to be up close and personal and watch it. And I just want to talk about a bit of the backlash that I had today, because you've seen, we mentioned it, you might just be coming home or just getting up to go to work at this time. But the president saw me in the room, and as I say, GBNews is not normally included in these occasions. It's a rotation, and we are, of course, international press, so we don't get the priority that the American press get. But we were given access today, which was wonderful. So I was in the Oval Office, and he caught my eye, and I got to ask a question, and this is what happened.
Go ahead, please.
Keir Starmer isn't making...
She's a fantastic reporter, by the way. Go ahead.
Thank you. The Prime Minister isn't making the case to the British public as to why he should be supporting you. Could you do that now and talk to the UK and to GBNews viewers about why it's in their interest that we help you? So it was lovely of the president to say that. I mean, which journalist doesn't want that, right? Who doesn't want that? So GBNews' political editor Christopher Hope was also proud of his colleague and hopefully his friend, and he posted on Twitter, and he said President Donald Trump praises GBNews' Beverly Turner as a fantastic reporter. Now, I don't think Chris knew what kind of worms he was opening at that point, because he was just being nice, because Chris is one of the nicest blokes in the world, never mind in the media. And lots of people piled in and said this isn't a compliment. For President Trump to call you a fantastic reporter is not a compliment, including former Sky News political editor Adam Bolton, who asked, "That's a compliment?" ? Former Channel 4 News political correspondent Michael Crick said that tweet debases all three of you. Former editor of The Sun, David Yelland, says, "Oh, Chris, you must know this is no badge of honour." What are they accusing me of, gentlemen? Because maybe they don't know me very well, but Chris Hope does know me, and anybody that's worked on this show with me for the last 8 months does know me, and anybody who's watched my journalism career will know I do not bend for anyone. And I think the accusation is I am just cozying up to Trump and agreeing with what he says. No. You've completely misunderstood David Yelland and the above. It is not that. I know what I believe in. The president happens to believe in the same things. It is not me cozying up to the president. And my question, in fact, which was, can you explain to the British public why there is a case for this war. That isn't an easy question. That's not letting him off the hook. That's asking him to talk to the British public. As I said, talk to GB News viewers. Tell them why it is their interest that you have success in this area. I didn't think it was an easy question, and the BBC question perhaps a little easier. I hold my hands up to that one. But actually, what are they accusing me of? Paul Cox, let me come to you on this. When they're saying that isn't a compliment, why isn't it?
Well, first of all, I do believe genuinely that it's this envy. You know, this is the most powerful man on earth, and we are an upstart, centre-right news channel that has gone from zero to the absolute top of the world in terms of journalism in about 4 years. So every single one of those people there, including Michael Crick, who often contributes on this show as well, and it's like a soundbite trumpet, often just blah, 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 blah. You can't get a word in edgewise when he's on. God bless you, Michael. Thank you for coming on. But these people, of course they're going to say that. Bev, it is fantastic. What other British journalist has now got the sort of favour and access that GB News and Bev Turner has? Look, this isn't about propaganda. We're not here. No one's ever told me to say something positive about Trump, so I know no one's ever told you to say something positive about Trump. We say what we think and feel and see, and this is the most powerful man on the earth. They'd be fawning over themselves, falling, if this was Biden, obviously, or Obama, or someone of that nature. This is purely party political, and every single one of those people should be ashamed of themselves. Adam Bolton, by the way, this is not a man who covers himself in glory, is it?
No, and I didn't respond online. I didn't respond because sometimes I let these blokes fight it out amongst themselves, and it's classier not to respond. But Adam Bolton, the thing is, I've got my own show, so I can respond to you on here, which is probably a little bit more powerful. But Mark, let me just ask you about this, because I think what they're saying is President Trump would only say you are a fantastic journalist if you agree with him. Now, I haven't had enough time with him for him to have drawn that conclusion that I agree with him. I've had I had a nice long sit down with him in November of about 45 minutes or so. My conclusion about President Trump is this: you can ask him a tough question, but as long as you do it with courtesy, with warmth, with a smile on your face perhaps, with manners, he will answer it. And I'd love to get to the stage with him where I am able to hold his feet to the fire a little bit more than I do at the moment. I mean, I was lucky to get 2 questions in that very busy room. But what do you make of this as a very experienced journalist yourself?
So I think it is absolutely incumbent upon a journalist to take any opportunity when you get time with the president or really anybody in power, whether it's the Speaker of the House or it's the Senate Majority Leader, to make sure you're asking about news of the day and you are trying to get an answer, not a puff answer, not just hot air, but an answer. Now, Donald Trump historically has been very difficult to get a straight answer from, because he often takes different positions, as we've seen, for example, on hostilities in Iran. There have been many different positions in the first days of that conflict. So I think that in some cases, a journalist will ask a question. If he doesn't like the journalist personally, then he has accused that journalist of having bias. For example, on Air Force One yesterday, there was an ABC reporter, her very first time representing the TV networks in the pool, right? The representative numbers of the press that are on the seats, the few seats that are on Air Force One. And he had attacked her and the network. In reality, it is the journalist's job, just like you did, to ask questions to elicit an answer from those in power. It's called holding them to account. In some cases, the really good politicians will praise the people that they want better coverage out of, and they will criticize the journalists that they didn't like the coverage of. So I'm not sure what he was thinking when he praised you. You're a fantastic person. I do know that sometimes politicians are pretty savvy. Especially if they don't know you well, to try and create that relationship off the bat.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is a reciprocal relationship, isn't it? As the journalist with the interviewee, especially when he's the most famous, powerful man in the world. It is about that connection. It's about the eye contact. It's about the rapport you might get. It's not just about him thinking I'm going to be on side. I genuinely don't get that vibe with him. Mali, let me bring you in, Mali, because I've seen how you see, Caitlin Collins is the big CNN, she's like the big wig in the room. Caitlin Collins walks around in her sunglasses and, you know, she's kind of like the big deal. He hates her. He can't stand her. He's constantly saying he can't stand her. And you know why? She never smiles. And I swear to God, she asks him tough questions, but she doesn't smile. And I think she's very good at her job. She's a superb journalist. She's been in the White House press room, I imagine, for a little while now. But you've got to warm people up, even if you disagree with them, Mali, don't you?
Yes. One anecdote, Caitlin Collins and I live in the same building, or we did, so she's a neighbor. But with your approach to Trump, I think you're exactly right. You know, I was on your show the day that you did the long interview with him after the BBC story broke. And as I told you, you know, some of the questions you asked weren't necessarily the questions I would have asked, but I think you got a lot out of him because you approached him in a friendly manner and you let him talk. And honestly, I think that's one of the ways to get good information from a politician, because you'll get them off guard. And I'm not saying you're trying to trick them, but they're going to be a little bit more candid if they're relaxed and they feel like they're having a conversation with someone and they're not dealing with a lawyer who's giving them a deposition. So yes, I would just say ignore the haters because, yeah.
You're so right. And I think what's so funny is the haters are kind of accusing me of being establishment in some way. They're like, oh, she's sold out. She's kissing Trump's backside. It's the polar opposite. They are the establishment. I am not. And frankly, neither is President Trump. And I do think that's possibly why we get on, in a sense, because he sees the mischief in the way that I see the mischief, Eric.
Well, here in the United States, we refer to the press as the fourth estate, and the job is not necessarily to be the friend of the politician. It is to shine a light on the events that are taking place, the policies, and more importantly, to be a check on their power.
Yeah, absolutely, and I would like to continue to do that. Let's have a quick look at the weather, shall we? Here it is.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, a cracker of a spring day for most of England and Wales. Lots of sunshine, quite warm by this afternoon. Some parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland seeing some sunshine, but there is this cloudier zone over Northern Ireland, southern Scotland in particular. A little bit of light rain and drizzle possible in places here through the morning, but tending to peter out. So the odd shower into the Western Isles, but much of northern Scotland dry, and some sunny spells certainly for Aberdeenshire. Lots of sunshine further south, light winds, temperatures jumping up. 18, 19, we could easily see the first 20 of the year in parts of West Wales. Further north, still that cloudier zone affecting parts of Northern Ireland and southern Scotland, and still the odd shower just moving up towards Orkney, Caithness and Sutherland. But as I said, Aberdeenshire generally staying dry. The cloud thick enough for a little bit of light rain and drizzle, particularly on the southwestern parts of Scotland. But the rain and drizzle should be easing from Northern Ireland, staying quite cloudy here into this evening, but generally clear skies for England and Wales with a bit more of a breeze coming in from the east. It will be a little cooler on these eastern coasts through the day today, and that will continue to strengthen a little bit over the next couple of days. The rain may pep up a little bit overnight across parts of central and eastern Scotland, but it should stay fairly light. Clearer skies to the north and plenty of clear skies to the south. That will allow some mist and fog patches to form, and it will allow it to turn quite chilly tonight. Some pockets of frost just about possible in some rural spots, but most places staying a little bit above zero. Into Thursday, another cracking day. Not quite as warm, perhaps a bit more of a breeze blowing along the south coast. Duller day for the southeast of Scotland, northeast England, and under this cloudier zone, it'll feel quite chilly, I suspect, with temperatures only 9 or 10 Celsius. But elsewhere, should be a sunnier day for Northern Ireland, so feeling warmer here. And again, further south, temperatures widely into the mid-teens.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
GB Loyalty Points is here. They're our way of saying thank you for spending time with GB News. Through commenting on your say, voting in You Decide polls and shaping the debate, you can earn GB loyalty points. Unlock rewards, reach milestones and climb leaderboards. Don't just watch our programmes, come and be part of them. Get started by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/loyalty points.
Welcome back now. This is St Patrick's Day. Northern Ireland is front and centre in Washington, marking 250 years since the United States declared independence. Communities Minister Gordon Lyons says that the Ulster Scots didn't just settle America, they helped shape its founding values and identity. From the Bill of Rights to the so-called special relationship, he argues those historic links still define UK-US ties today. And with ministers meeting US leaders in DC, Northern Ireland is looking to turn history into influence. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined now by the Northern Ireland Minister for Communities, Gordon Lyons. Gordon, it's funny, wasn't it? We did a little intro with pictures of you and then here you are in real life, not seen that done before. I've been thinking about Northern Ireland today.
Good.
You were in some of those rooms with me, weren't you? The Taoiseach is there and there's all this beautiful love-in between the two countries, between Ireland and America. Where does Northern Ireland sit on a day like today?
Well, Northern Ireland has a really important role to play, and this is a week actually where people from Northern Ireland, political and business leaders, come over to make Northern Ireland's story known. So we have had a number of events today that the Northern Ireland delegation was part of. Deputy First Minister and I were both at the Speaker's lunch today. We were both in the White House. Deputy First Minister met with the President and he referenced Northern Ireland in his speeches as well. And I'm hosting my own event tomorrow in the US Capitol, where we're going to be telling people a little bit more about the impact that people from what is now Northern Ireland had on those early days in the United States. I think everybody's aware of the post-famine immigration from Ireland to the US, to cities like Boston and Chicago and New York.
And that was in the 1800s.
Yeah, and I want to take people back 100 years beforehand, because in the early 1700s, many passenger ships left from Londonderry and Larne and Belfast and went to America. And those ships took with them people who built the country from the ground up. They were the first settlers. They established the United States as we know it today. They signed the Declaration of Independence. In fact, the first copies of the Declaration were printed by John Dunlap, who came from County Tyrone. He actually left when he was 10 years old to go over and to be a printer in America. And
Didn't I hear the Taoiseach taking a bit of credit for some of this today, though?
Yeah, it's a little bit cheeky, actually, because he mentioned two famous people, John Dunlap and also Charles Thompson. He was the secretary to the Continental Congress. Important people, and he's trying to claim them for himself. But these were people from Ulster, and that's why we're so proud of them. But not just those more famous faces and names, but it's the ordinary men and women who went over, driven by faith and by their values, and through hard work, determination and resilience built the country. And my goodness, they would needed to have had those things. We flew over this week at hundreds of miles an hour in a plane 35,000 feet above the air and got there in a few hours, but that was a really tough, dangerous journey. People, they left behind everything that they had to start a new life. You needed to be pretty determined and resilient to do that, and that's what helped build the US.
And Trump made a bit of a joke today, didn't he, at that lunch? Which looked lovely, by the way.
Was very
I was stood behind a rope starving. I was very jealous.
You should have said I would have shared
If I
some
knew
with
you there, you could have thrown me a bread roll. I saw Ian Paisley Jr. and I nearly said to him, can you just chuck me a chip or something? But actually, Trump made this joke, didn't he, about the fact that you had Ulster and Northern Ireland in the room, you had Ireland, and he said, maybe, he said, what I like is a merger. I love a merger. Maybe we can, and he sort of went, no, maybe not. That joke did land quite well in the crowd, though, didn't it?
Yeah, it did, and it was a joke, and nationalist politicians from Northern Ireland are refusing to come to the United States. They don't like the US's policy in terms of Gaza, and they have decided to boycott at this stage.
We have run out of time, Gordon. Thank you so much. Gordon Lyons there. I will see you tomorrow night, midnight in the UK. See you then.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Morning, welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. A cracker of a spring day for most of England and Wales. Lots of sunshine, quite warm by this afternoon. Some parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland seeing some sunshine, but there is this cloudier zone over Northern Ireland, southern Scotland in particular. A little bit of light rain and drizzle possible in places here through the morning, but tending to peter out. So the odd shower into the Western Isles, but much of northern Scotland dry and some sunny spells, certainly for Aberdeenshire. Lots of sunshine further south, light winds, temperatures jumping up. 18, 19, we could easily see the first 20 of the year in parts of West Wales. Further north, still that cloudy air zone affecting parts of Northern Ireland and southern Scotland, and still the odd shower just moving up towards Orkney, Caithness and Sutherland. But as I said, Aberdeenshire generally staying dry. The cloud thick enough for a little bit of light rain and drizzle, particularly on the southwestern parts of Scotland. But the rain and drizzle should be easing from Northern Ireland, staying quite cloudy here into this evening, but generally clear skies for England and Wales, with a bit more of a breeze coming in from the east. It will be a little cooler on these eastern coasts through the day today, and that will continue to strengthen a little bit over the next couple of days. The rain may pep up a little bit overnight across parts of central and eastern Scotland, but it should stay fairly light. Clearer skies to the north and plenty of clear skies to the south. That will allow some mist and fog patches to fall, and it will allow it to turn quite chilly tonight. Some pockets of frost just about possible in some rural spots, but most places staying a little bit above zero. Into Thursday, another cracking day. Not quite as warm, perhaps a bit more of a breeze blowing along the south coast. Duller day for the south